The morning Claire Kingsley challenged her janitor to a sparring match, she expected submission. What she got instead was a lesson that would shatter everything she believed about power. In front of 50 employees at Valencia Innovations, the billionaire CEO's perfectly executed takedown attempt met something unexpected. True strength wrapped in work boots and humility. But when the quiet janitor swept her to the mat with moves that spoke of a buried past, the real fight had only just begun. Stay with me as this story unfolds across continents and consciences. Comment your city below. I'd love to know how far this tale of redemption travels. The morning sun sliced through the floor-to-ceiling windows of Valencia Innovations' executive gym, casting long shadows across the pristine white mats. Claire Kingsley stood at the center, her black gi crisp against her athletic frame, the worn black belt around her waist telling a story of 15 years of dedication, discipline, and dominance. At 38, she commanded not just this space, but an empire worth $3 billion built on artificial intelligence and an iron will that bent markets to her vision. Strength isn't just physical, she announced to the gathered employees, her voice carrying the authority of someone who'd never been told no and meant it. It's mental. It's the willingness to engage when others retreat. It's why Valencia Innovations leads while others follow. The monthly morning sessions had become legendary at the company. Claire would demonstrate techniques, sometimes spar with visiting instructors, always reinforcing the message that power, real power, came from never showing weakness. The 50 or so employees who gathered weren't just there for the spectacle. Attendance was unofficially mandatory for anyone hoping to climb the corporate ladder. Daniel Briggs pushed his mop bucket along the edge of the mat, trying to be invisible. At 42, he'd perfected the art of being overlooked. Shoulders slightly hunched, eyes down, movements efficient but unremarkable. His Valencia Innovations janitor uniform hung loose on his lean frame, hiding the coiled strength beneath. He'd timed his cleaning route to avoid these sessions, but today the elevator maintenance had thrown off his schedule. You see, Claire continued executing a perfect hip throw on the training dummy. Most people live their entire lives avoiding confrontation. They accept their place. They mop floors while others build empires. Her eyes swept the room and landed on Daniel. A smile played at the corner of her mouth, not cruel exactly, but sharp with opportunity. "You there," she called out, her voice cutting through the hushed attention of the crowd. "Yes, you with the mop. Come here." Daniel's hand stilled on the mop handle. The industrial clock on the wall seemed to tick louder in the sudden silence. 50 pairs of eyes turned to him, some sympathetic, most merely curious about what entertainment their CEO had planned. "I'm just cleaning, ma'am," Daniel said quietly, his voice carrying a hint of something not quite Southern, not quite Midwestern, worn smooth by years of deliberate practice at being unremarkable. "Oh, come on." Claire laughed, and the room laughed with her, because that's what you did when Claire Kingsley laughed. "I'm not going to hurt you, much." More laughter. "I need someone to help me demonstrate a basic technique. You look about the right size. What do you say, want to try a friendly spar? I'll go easy on you." The marketing director, Brad Chen, whistled low. $100 says he doesn't last 30 seconds, he whispered to his colleague. "You're on," Sarah from HR whispered back. "I say 15. Daniel set down his mop with deliberate care, the way someone might place a loaded weapon they didn't want to accidentally discharge. He walked onto the mat, his work boots leaving faint marks on the pristine surface. The contrast was almost painful. Claire, in her professional gear radiating confidence and barely contained energy. Daniel, in his gray uniform name tag, slightly crooked, a day's stubble on his weathered face. "Take off your boots at least," Claire said, her tone somewhere between amused and condescending. "This is a $10,000 mat." Daniel bent to unlace his boots, and in that moment Claire noticed his hands. They were a janitor's hands, certainly rough, calloused from honest work. But there was something in the way they moved, economical and precise, that made her training whisper a warning she chose to ignore. "Have you ever done any martial arts?" she asked, as he straightened now in worn white socks that had seen better days. "A little," Daniel said. "Long time ago." "Well, this should be educational then." Claire moved into a ready stance, weight balanced, hands up, but relaxed. Don't worry, I'm not going to embarrass you. Much. The room tittered again. Someone started recording on their phone despite the company policy against it. Within seconds, a dozen phones were out ready to capture their CEO's latest display of dominance. Daniel stood there for a moment, and Claire saw what she expected to see: a middle-aged janitor out of his depth, probably regretting his life choices. She'd make this quick, painless enough. A simple takedown, help him up, make some point about how everyone could learn from challenges. The usual script. "Ready when you are," Daniel said, and something in his voice made Claire pause. It wasn't fear or bravado. It was patience. The kind of patience that came from having waited for much more important things than a CEO's ego display. Claire moved first, as she always did, a testing jab probing his defenses. Daniel shifted slightly, just enough that her fist found air. Lucky, she thought. She followed with a combination she'd drilled thousands of times, jab cross-level change for the takedown. It was smooth, practice perfect. Daniel's response was water. He didn't block or strike. He simply wasn't where her attacks expected him to be. Her jab slid past his ear as he tilted his head. Her cross met his forearm, but instead of resistance, he redirected the force, turning her momentum into a gentle spiral that left her slightly off balance. When she dropped for the takedown, his hip was already gone, rotated away with a movement so subtle it looked accidental. The room had gone silent. Even the phones seemed to have stopped breathing. Claire reset her smile tighter now. "Not bad. You've definitely trained before." "Like I said," Daniel replied, his stance still casual, almost apologetic. "A little." This time Claire didn't hold back. She launched into an aggressive sequence tie clinch attempt into knee strikes, transition to arm drag setup for a rear naked choke. It was a combination that had won her tournaments, that had put black belts on their backs. She moved with the confidence of someone who'd never met a problem her will couldn't solve. Daniel moved like smoke through her fingers. The clinch never materialized because his head position was perfect without seeming to try. The knee strikes hit air or glanced off angles that shouldn't have been there. The arm drag found nothing to drag because he was already turning with her motion, using her own force to create distance. And the choke she'd locked in hundreds of times simply wasn't there, because somehow impossibly he'd shifted his shoulders in a way that made her arms slide off like rain. "Interesting," Claire breathed, and now there was something dangerous in her voice. The kind of dangerous that had crushed competitors in boardrooms and on mats alike. She beckoned him forward. "Your turn. Show me what you've got." Daniel shook his head slightly. "I'm good, ma'am. Maybe we should—" "I said," Claire interrupted, her voice sharp enough to cut glass. "Show me what you've got." The employees pressed closer, sensing blood in the water. This wasn't fun anymore. This was their CEO's reputation, and by extension, the very hierarchy of their world. Daniel sighed, and in that sigh was a weight that made several people step back instinctively. He moved forward, and it was nothing like Claire's aggressive advance. He walked like someone approaching a skittish animal, careful and considered. Claire attacked the moment he was in range, shooting for a double-leg takedown with explosive force. It was perfect technique, the kind that had taken her years to master. Daniel's response took less than a second. He didn't sprawl or struggle. He simply guided her momentum downward with one hand while his hip checked her forward motion. His other arm snaked around her waist, not grabbing, just guiding. And then, with a movement that looked like he was helping an elderly person into a chair, he reversed her entire attack. Claire found herself airborne for a brief, impossible moment. The ceiling lights flashed past her vision. Then she was on the mat, landed so gently it took her a moment to realize she'd been thrown at all. Daniel was already stepping back, hands open and non-threatening. The gym erupted. "Holy shit!" someone gasped. "Did you see that? He didn't even try?" Claire rolled to her feet, her face flushed. The careful composure she wore like armor had cracked, showing something raw underneath. "Again," she said. "Ma'am, I really should get back to again." This time she came at him with everything. Years of training, competition, and pride compressed into a singular need to restore order to her universe. She threw combinations that had never failed her, attempted sweeps that were textbook perfect, tried every trick and trap in her extensive arsenal. Daniel weathered it all like a lighthouse in a storm. He didn't counter or attack. He simply existed in the space where her techniques wanted to succeed and prevented them through positioning so perfect it looked accidental. When she threw strikes, he was slightly somewhere else. When she attempted throws, his balance was always just beyond her breaking point. When she went for submissions, her grips found angles that dissolved into nothing. After 2 minutes that felt like hours, Claire was breathing hard, sweat staining her GI. Daniel looked like he'd been waiting for a bus. "Fight back," she panted. "God damn it, fight back." "No, ma'am," Daniel said quietly. "I don't do that anymore." The words hung in the air like a confession. Claire studied him, really looked at him for the first time. Past the janitor's uniform, past the deliberately forgettable posture. She saw the way he stood, weight perfectly centered, hands relaxed but ready. She saw the small scars on his knuckles that spoke of more than cleaning supplies. She saw the way his eyes tracked everything in the room while seeming to look at nothing. "Who are you?" she asked. "Daniel Briggs," he said. "Janitor, Building 3. Before Claire could respond, her assistant Mark rushed onto the mat. "Ms. Kingsley, your 9 o'clock is here. The Japanese investors." Claire looked around the room at the phones still recording, at the expressions ranging from shock to something uncomfortably close to schadenfreude. Her empire of control had cracked, and everyone had seen it. "We're not done," she told Daniel. "Yes, ma'am," he said, already retrieving his boots. "I'll make sure the mats are cleaned properly tonight." As he walked away pushing his mop bucket, Claire noticed something else. He moved through the crowd and people parted for him without seeming to realize they were doing it. The invisible janitor had become something else, something that made people step aside without understanding why. That afternoon, Claire couldn't focus on the investor meeting. The Japanese executives droned on about market projections and expansion strategies, but all she could see was the moment Daniel had reversed her perfect takedown, the gentle way he'd placed her on the mat, like he was setting down something fragile. "Kingsley-san," Mr. Yamamoto said, pulling her back to the present. "You seem distracted. Is everything all right?" "Fine," Claire said, forcing herself to focus. "Just considering all angles of your proposal." But she wasn't. She was thinking about Daniel Briggs and the way he'd said, "I don't do that anymore," like it was both a promise and a penance. After the meeting, she pulled up the company personnel files. Daniel Briggs, hired 18 months ago. Previous employment. Various manual labor positions. Education. High school diploma. Emergency contact, Emma Briggs. Daughter age 7. Single father. Nothing else. The file was so thin it practically screamed that there was more to the story. She called her head of security, Tom Reeves. "I need a deeper background check on an employee." "Which one?" "Daniel Briggs, janitor in Building 3. There was a pause. "Any particular reason has there been an incident?" Claire thought about the morning sparring session. "Just do it. Full spectrum. Military records, criminal background, everything." "That's unusual for a janitor, ma'am, and potentially legally problematic without cause." "I'm not asking for your legal opinion, Tom. Just get it done." She hung up and turned to her window, looking out at the city she'd conquered one acquisition at a time. Somewhere in Building 3, a janitor was pushing a mop and carrying secrets she suddenly needed to understand. That evening, Daniel stood in the kitchen of his small apartment making mac and cheese while his daughter, Emma, worked on her homework at the scarred dining table. The place was clean but worn, everything secondhand but cared for. Photos on the walls showed better times, a younger Daniel in marine dress blues, a woman with Emma's eyes, and Daniel's quiet smile, the three of them at a beach, somewhere back when the world had been different. "Dad, you're doing the thing again," Emma said without looking up from her math worksheet. "What thing?" "The thinking thing, where you stir the pot but you're not really here." Daniel forced himself to focus on the present, on the orange powder turning into something resembling cheese sauce. "Sorry, kiddo. Long day." "Did something happen at work?" He thought about Claire Kingsley on her back on the mat, the shock in her eyes mixing with something else, recognition, maybe of a predator meeting another predator who'd chosen to eat grass instead of meat. "Nothing important," he said. Emma looked up at him with eyes that were too knowing for 7 years old. She'd had to grow up fast after her mother died, had learned to read the subtle shifts in her father's mood like weather patterns. You know what Mom used to say, Emma said, returning to her homework. Secrets are just truths waiting for the right time. Daniel's hand stilled on the spoon. Rachel had said that usually right before getting him to admit something he'd been holding back. 3 years gone, and her words still lived in their daughter's mouth. Sometimes, Daniel said carefully, the right time never comes, and that's okay too. Emma shrugged, unconvinced but willing to let it go. Can we have ice cream after dinner, Schvers? Vegetables first. You didn't make vegetables. Mac and cheese has cheese. That's dairy. That's practically a vegetable. Emma laughed, and for a moment the small apartment felt less like a hiding place and more like a home. But across the city, Claire Kingsley sat in her office as the sun died behind the skyline, watching grainy security footage on her computer. She'd had it pull the gym recordings from multiple angles, and she was studying them like game tape. She watched Daniel's movements frame by frame, seeing things she'd missed in the heat of the moment. The way he'd shifted his weight just before she attacked, like he'd read her intention before she'd fully formed it. The perfect economy of his movements, nothing wasted, nothing unnecessary. The way he'd controlled her landing when he threw her, ensuring she wouldn't even bruise. This wasn't just training. This was years of something else, something harder and more serious than sport. This was combat refined to instinct. Her phone buzzed. Tom Reeves. That background check you wanted? It's strange. Strange how... Strange as in it's too clean, like someone carefully constructed it to be boring. No social media presence, no digital footprint beyond the basics. His previous employers all check out, but when you dig deeper, the references get vague. It's professional work. Professional as in someone who knows how to disappear wanted Daniel Briggs to have a past that wouldn't raise questions. But here's the thing, I found a partial match in a military database. Sealed records but the date of birth and first name match. Marine Corps Force Reconnaissance. Everything else is classified or redacted. Claire felt her pulse quicken. Force Recon. Elite Special Operations. The kind of people who did things that never made the news. Can you get the sealed records? Not legally. And probably not illegally without triggering alerts that would bring federal attention. Ms. Kingsley, if this man is who I think he might be pushing, this could be inadvisable. Since when has inadvisable ever stopped me? Since never. Which is why I'm telling you that whoever Daniel Briggs used to be, he's chosen to be a janitor now. Men like that don't make that choice lightly, and they definitely don't appreciate people digging into their reasons. After she hung up, Claire sat in the darkness of her office city lights, painting patterns on the walls. She thought about the way Daniel had said, "I don't do that anymore," and wondered what had happened to make a warrior choose minimum wage and anonymity. The next morning, Daniel arrived at work to find his supervisor, Carl, waiting for him by the supply closet. "Corporate wants to see you," Carl said, and there was something in his voice that sounded like sympathy. "What about..." "Didn't say. Just said to send you up as soon as you got in. 38th floor." Daniel's jaw tightened almost imperceptibly. The executive floor, Claire Kingsley's domain. "Am I being fired?" Carl shrugged. "Above my pay grade, Dan. But for what it's worth, you're the best janitor I've got. Never complained, never missed a shift, never caused problems. Until yesterday, anyway." "What happened yesterday?" "You know what happened yesterday. It's all over the company social network. The janitor who made the CEO tap out. Except she didn't tap, did she? You just stopped." Daniel said nothing. "Look," Carl continued, lowering his voice, "I don't know what your story is, and I don't need to know. But that woman up there, she's not used to being shown up. She's brilliant, but she's also proud. And proud people do stupid things when their pride gets bruised." "Thanks for the warning." Daniel took the service elevator up, avoiding the main lifts where he might encounter employees who'd witnessed yesterday's display. But even in the service elevator, he could feel the shift. The security guard who usually ignored him nodded respectfully. The maintenance worker sharing the elevator gave him a look that was equal parts curiosity and wariness. The 38th floor was a different world. Glass and chrome and money made manifest in every carefully chosen detail. The receptionist, a young man who looked like he'd stepped out of a fashion magazine, looked up as Daniel approached. "Mr. Briggs, Ms. Kingsley is expecting you. Conference room 3. Being expected was never good. Daniel followed the directions down a hallway lined with abstract art that probably cost more than he'd make in a lifetime. Conference Room 3 was a corner room with views of the city in two directions. Claire stood with her back to him, looking out at her domain. Gunnery Sergeant Daniel Briggs, she said without turning around. Force Reconnaissance 2nd Marine Division. 3 tours in Afghanistan, 2 in Iraq. Silver Star, Bronze Star with Valor. 2 Purple Hearts. Honorably discharged 5 years ago after an incident that's been redacted so thoroughly it might as well have never happened. Daniel stood perfectly still, his face giving away nothing. Claire turned around, and there was something different about her. The polished CEO mask was still there, but underneath was something rawer, hungrier. Except it did happen, didn't it? Something that made one of the Marine Corps' most decorated warriors become a janitor in Seattle. "I'm just here to clean, ma'am. Stop." She moved closer, and Daniel could see the fighter in her, the one who'd earned that black belt through years of sweat and pain. "Stop pretending to be nobody. I've seen nobody, and nobody doesn't move like you do. Nobody doesn't have hands that have broken things they can't talk about. Nobody doesn't make my instincts scream danger while standing there in a janitor's uniform. What do you want, Ms. Kingsley? I want to know why you're here. Why you're mopping floors when you could be running security for Fortune 500 companies. Why you're hiding." Daniel met her eyes for the first time, and Claire saw something there that made her take an involuntary step back. It wasn't anger or threat. It was depth, the kind that came from seeing too much and deciding to look away. "Everyone's hiding from something," he said quietly. "Some of us are just better at it than others." "Is that a threat?" "No, ma'am. It's an observation. You hide behind that black belt in this office. You hide behind the power and the money, but when someone knows how to look, they can see what you're hiding from too." Claire's face flushed. "You don't know anything about me." "I know you didn't earn that black belt in a strip mall dojo," Daniel said. "Your technique is too good, too practical. Brazilian jiu-jitsu with some judo, but there's Krav Maga in there too. Israeli military style, not the civilian version. You've trained with people who've used it for real. And that tells me you're not just playing at being dangerous. You're trying to prove something. To someone. Or maybe to yourself." The silence stretched between them like a held breath. "There was an incident," Claire said finally. "In Tel Aviv, 10 years ago. I was there for a tech conference. Wrong place, wrong time. A knife attack in a market. 3 people died before security responded. I hid behind a fruit stand and watched a 70-year-old grandmother bleed out 6 feet away because I was too scared to help." She moved to the window again, her reflection ghost-like in the glass. "I started training the next week. Swore I'd never be helpless again. And I haven't been. Until yesterday when you made me feel like that 28-year-old hiding behind oranges in fear." Daniel was quiet for a long moment. Then, "Being dangerous doesn't make you less afraid. It just makes you better at hiding it." Speaking from experience, "Yeah. What happened? What made you stop?" Daniel looked out at the city, but his eyes were seeing something else. Mountains, maybe. Desert. Places where the rules were different and the consequences absolute. "There was a mission," he said slowly, like he was pulling the words from somewhere deep. "Classified off the books. The kind where success means nobody ever knows it happened. We were tracking a high-value target through a village. Perfect intel, perfect setup. Except intel was wrong. It wasn't a terrorist cell. It was a wedding." Claire said nothing, sensing the weight of what was coming. "We realized it too late. The drone strike was already inbound. I broke protocol, broke radio silence to call it off. Got most of it stopped, but 1 missile had already launched. 17 civilians, 7 kids. Because I'd confirmed the target that wasn't a target. That wasn't your fault. Bad intel. I was team leader. Everything was my fault." His voice was flat matter of fact. "But that wasn't what ended it. What ended it was 3 months later stateside. I was teaching hand-to-hand combat to new Marines. Young kid 19 reminded me of my brother. Eager, talented, cocky. During a demonstration I misjudged. Threw him wrong. Broke his neck. Paralyzed from the chest down." The words hung in the air like smoke from a distant fire. "His name was Marcus Wells," Daniel continued. "Lives in Portland now. Wheelchair basketball team. Married his high school girlfriend. Sends me a Christmas card every year telling me he forgives me. And every year I throw it away unopened because forgiveness isn't his to give. So you became a janitor. I became someone who doesn't hurt people anymore. Someone who cleans up messes instead of making them. Someone who can raise his daughter without her being afraid of what her father's hands have done. Claire turned from the window to study him. But you still train. Nobody maintains that level of skill without constant practice. Old habits. I train alone early mornings when Emma's asleep. Not to stay dangerous. To remember why I chose not to be. That's why you didn't fight back yesterday. I haven't fought back in 5 years. Haven't thrown a real punch. Haven't applied a submission with intent. Yesterday was the closest I've come. And even that was too much. Too much? You barely did anything. I engaged, Daniel said simply. That was too much. Claire moved back to her desk, pulled out a folder. I could use someone like you, head of security, 6-figure salary, benefits. Your daughter could go to any school she wanted. No. You haven't even heard the full offer. Doesn't matter. I'm not that person anymore. But you could be. For the right cause, the right reason. There is no right reason, Daniel said, and there was steel in his voice now. There's always a reason, always a cause, always something that makes violence seem justified. But violence is like a virus. Once you let it in, it spreads. It touches everything. I won't let it touch my daughter. So you'll just waste your talents, mop floors until you die. There's honor in honest work, in being useful without being dangerous, in being forgotten. Claire stared at him, frustration clear on her face. I don't understand you. You don't have to. Just let me go back to being nobody. And if I don't, if I tell everyone who you really are. Daniel's expression didn't change, but something shifted in the room's atmosphere like the pressure drop before a storm. Then you'd be making me choose between my daughter's safety and my principles, he said quietly. And that's a choice that wouldn't end well for anyone. It wasn't a threat. It was a statement of fact delivered with the certainty of someone who'd made hard choices before and would again if forced. Claire felt a chill run down her spine. For the first time in years, she was faced with someone she couldn't intimidate or outmaneuver. Someone who'd walked away from power because he understood its cost better than she ever would. Fine, she said. Go back to your mop, but this isn't over. It is for me, Daniel said, turning to leave. Wait, Claire's voice stopped him at the door. The Christmas cards. From Marcus. Why throw them away unopened? Daniel was quiet for so long she thought he wouldn't answer. Then, because if I read them, I might start to believe forgiveness is possible. And if I believe that I might forgive myself. And if I forgive myself, I might forget why I can never be that man again. He left, closing the door softly behind him. Claire stood alone in her conference room, surrounded by the trappings of power, feeling smaller than she had since hiding behind that fruit stand in Tel Aviv. That evening, the video hit the internet. Someone had edited together the gym footage from multiple angles, added slow-motion replays, and dramatic music. Billionaire CEO gets destroyed by janitor, the title screamed. Within hours, it had 1 million views. Within a day, 5 million. The comments ranged from admiring to brutal. That janitor has serious skills. Anyone know his background? Rich lady thought she was tough until she met actually tough. The way he helped her up after pure class. CEO salaries versus janitor wages, but look who's really valuable. Claire watched the numbers climb from her home office, each view another crack in the image she'd spent years building. Her phone buzzed constantly, board members, investors, competitors, all suddenly concerned about the company's leadership. Is this going to be a problem? Richard Chen, chairman of the board, asked during an emergency call. It's a video of a sparring match. It's nothing. It's a video of you being humiliated by an employee you then tried to poach for executive position, according to my sources. Claire said nothing. Claire, you've built this company on an image of strength and invincibility. That image is now compromised. The Japanese walked away from the deal. They cited concerns about corporate stability. That's ridiculous. Is it? You know how they think. Face matters. And you just lost face in front of the entire internet. After the call, Claire poured herself a scotch and stood at her window looking out at the city lights. Somewhere out there, Daniel Briggs was probably helping his daughter with homework, unconcerned with viral videos or corporate politics, living his small, quiet life by choice rather than circumstance. Her phone rang. Unknown number.
Hello. Ms. Kingsley. This is Marcus Wells. Claire's blood chilled. The paralyzed Marine, Daniel's ghost. How did you get this number? I still have friends in the community. When that video went viral, some of them recognized the movement patterns, figured out who your janitor is. Thought you should hear from me before you do something stupid. I don't. Yes, you do. You're thinking about how to use this, how to leverage him somehow. That's what people like you do. But I'm calling to tell you that Daniel Briggs is the best man I've ever known, and what happened to me wasn't his fault. He paralyzed you. No. A freak accident paralyzed me. A combination of factors that nobody could have predicted. I've seen the footage from that training session 100 times. Daniel did everything right. Sometimes everything right still goes wrong. Then why does he blame himself? Marcus was quiet for a moment. Because that's who he is. He carries everyone else's weight, so they don't have to. He left the Corps because he couldn't forgive himself for something that wasn't his fault. And now he's trying to disappear because he thinks the world is better without him in it. Is it? No, the world needs men like Daniel Briggs. But more importantly, his daughter needs him. And if you take that away from her, if you expose him or hunt him or whatever corporate bullshit you're planning, I'll make sure everyone knows exactly what kind of person you really are. Is that a threat? It's a promise. Daniel won't fight back because he's made himself into someone who doesn't fight. But I never made that promise. And neither did the dozens of Marines who'd follow him into hell if he asked. Leave him alone, Ms. Kingsley. Let him have his peace. The line went dead. Claire stood in her empty penthouse holding her phone, feeling the weight of communities and loyalties she'd never understand. She'd built her empire on transactions and leverage, but Daniel lived in a world of bonds forged in fire and kept in silence. The next morning, she had Ite kill the video. It was too late to stop its spread entirely, but she could limit the damage. She put out a statement about the value of learning from everyone regardless of position. Corporate spin that fooled nobody but gave everyone an excuse to move on. Daniel heard about it from Carl. Corporate's doing damage control, his supervisor said. Videos getting pulled, lawyers sending cease and desist letters. You're safe, Dan. Job secure if you want it. Thanks, Carl. That was something else, though. Watching you move. Like watching a Ferrari pretend to be a Toyota. Toyotas are reliable. Nobody looks twice at a Toyota. Carl laughed. Yeah, but everyone knows what a Ferrari sounds like even when it's idling. That afternoon, Daniel was mopping the executive floor bathroom when Claire walked in. She stopped, surprised to find him there. I thought you'd avoid this floor. Job needs doing, Daniel said, not looking up from his work. I pulled the video. I know. I'm not going to expose you. I know that too. How? Daniel finally looked up, and there was something almost like kindness in his eyes. Because you're not cruel. Ambitious, proud, scared of being weak, but not cruel. And exposing me would be cruel. Not to me, but to Emma. And you wouldn't do that to a child. Claire felt something shift in her chest, a recognition of being seen more clearly than she was comfortable with. I got a call, she said. From Marcus Wells. Daniel's hand stilled on the mop. How is he? He says he forgives you. I know. He says it wasn't your fault. He's wrong. He says you're the best man he's ever known. Daniel went back to mopping. He's wrong about that too. Claire watched him work, this warrior-turned-janitor, this dangerous man who'd chosen to be harmless. I don't understand you, she said again. I told you, Daniel said. You don't have to. A week passed. The video became old news replaced by the next viral sensation. Claire went back to running her empire. Daniel went back to being invisible. But something had changed in the geometry of their worlds. Claire found herself taking the stairs, sometimes passing through areas where Daniel worked. Not speaking, just observing. Watching how he moved through space like he belonged to it, and it to him. Seeing how other janitors, security guards, the invisible army that kept the building running,
treated him with quiet respect. She noticed other things too. The way he always worked late on Thursdays, rushing to finish so he could make Emma's soccer practice. The lunch he ate at his desk, always a sandwich, an apple, and a small note that had to be from his daughter. The book he read during breaks. Philosophy, history, poetry. Never fiction, never escape, always something that seemed like penance or preparation. Daniel noticed her watching but said nothing. He'd been watched before by people far more dangerous than Claire Kingsley. He knew the weight of observation, how it could be threat or protection or simple curiosity. From her it felt like puzzle solving, like she was trying to understand something outside her experience. Then came the night that changed everything. It was a Tuesday past midnight. Claire was working late as usual, trying to salvage the Japanese deal through sheer force of will. The building was nearly empty, just security and cleaning crew. Daniel was buffing the floors in the main lobby when he heard it glass-breaking voices, wrong voices in the wrong place. 3 men had entered through a ground floor window. Not professionals, their movements were too loud, too obvious. Addicts probably, or amateur thieves looking for an easy score. But they were armed, and they were between Daniel and the exit. He could have hidden, could have called security, and waited. That's what a janitor would do. But then he heard Claire's voice from the elevator bay. She was coming down, probably heading home, finally walking right into them. The moment balanced on a knife's edge. 5 years of peace, of choosing to be nobody, of keeping his hands clean for Emma. Against it, Claire Kingsley about to walk into 3 armed men. Daniel made his choice. He moved through the shadows like he'd never stopped, like 5 years of mopping floors was just another form of training. The first man never saw him coming. A precise strike to the carotid sinus, dropping him unconscious before his brain could process the threat. The second managed half a shout before Daniel's hand covered his mouth, other arm applying a blood choke that put him under in 3 seconds. The third man spun gun rising. Daniel was already inside his arc controlling the weapon. Hands stripping the gun with a motion so practiced it was pure muscle memory. The man threw a wild punch that Daniel slipped, responding with a palm strike to the solar plexus that dropped him gasping. 8 seconds, 3 men down, 5 years of peace shattered. Claire stepped out of the elevator to find Daniel standing among 3 unconscious bodies, a pistol in his hand that he was methodically unloading. He looked up at her, and she saw something in his eyes. She recognized the moment when you realize you can't go back to who you were before. "Call security," he said quietly, setting the gun down carefully. "Tell them to call the police. 3 attempted burglary, possibly armed robbery. They'll need medical attention, but nothing critical. Daniel, please, just make the call." She did, and while they waited, she watched him sink into himself. He sat on the floor back against the wall, staring at his hands like they'd betrayed him. "You saved me," she said. "No, I just fell back into old patterns, like an alcoholic taking a drink after 5 years sober. That's not the same thing at all. Isn't it?" He looked up at her. "I told myself I'd never do this again. Never use these skills, never be that person. And all it took was one moment, one threat, and I became him again. How do I explain this to Emma? How do I tell her that her father broke his promise? You tell her that her father protected someone, that there's a difference between violence and protection. There's no difference, not in the doing of it. The same skills, the same training, the same person I swore I'd never be again." Security arrived, then the police. Daniel gave his statement matter-of-factly, leaving out nothing but adding no drama. Claire watched him navigate the questions with the ease of someone who'd been debriefed before, who knew how to give exactly the information required and nothing more. "You've got good instincts," the lead detective told him. "Ever consider law enforcement?" "No," Daniel said simply. After they left, Claire drove Daniel home. He'd refused at first, but she'd insisted, and he was too tired to argue. They sat in her Tesla in silence for most of the drive, the city sliding past in streams of light. "What you did tonight," Claire said finally, "it doesn't make you a bad person." "I never said I was a bad person. I said I was a dangerous person trying not to be." "Maybe that's not possible. Maybe you can't just turn off what you are." "Then I'll keep trying anyway." "Why?" Daniel was quiet for so long she thought he wouldn't answer. They were pulling up to his apartment building, a tired-looking complex that had seen better decades. Because, he said finally, Emma's mother died because of what I was, and I'll be damned if Emma loses her father to it too. He got out before Claire could ask what he meant, disappearing into the building's shadows. But Claire Kingsley hadn't built an empire by accepting non-answers. The research Claire commissioned was thorough, expensive, and ultimately heartbreaking. The private investigator she hired was ex-CIA, someone who knew how to find things that had been deliberately buried. It took him 3 weeks and cost more than most people's annual salary, but he delivered. Rachel Briggs née Morrison had died 3 years ago in a car accident. Single vehicle, late-night rural road outside Fort Bragg. The official report was clean, wet roads, high-speed, tragic accident. But the investigator found more. Rachel had been receiving death threats. Someone from Daniel's past, someone with a grudge against force recon operations in Afghanistan. The threats had been specific, credible, and Daniel had reported them to the authorities. The night Rachel died, Daniel had been deployed on a training exercise. Convenient timing that looked less convenient when you knew about the threats. The investigation had been perfunctory. The case closed quickly. Too quickly, according to the investigator's sources. Claire sat in her office reading the report for the 3rd time. A photo was clipped to the back, the Briggs family at Emma's 4th birthday party. Daniel in civilian clothes, but still carrying himself like a warrior. Rachel, beautiful and laughing. Emma covered in cake and joy. 3 months before Rachel died. You wanted leverage, she murmured to herself. Be careful what you wish for. She was still staring at the photo when her assistant knocked. Ms. Kingsley. There's a situation in the lobby. Claire found chaos. A man in an expensive suit was screaming at Daniel, who stood perfectly still, mop in hand, taking the abuse with the patience of stone. The man was clearly drunk, his words slurred but venomous. You think you're special? The man shouted. Big tough guy in that video? You're nothing, a janitor, a nobody. My shoes cost more than you make in a month. Claire recognized him. Travis Hoffman, a mid-level executive from the accounting department, known for his temper, his drinking, and his recent divorce. Sir, Daniel said calmly, you should go home. I can call you a cab. Travis shoved Daniel hard, or tried to. It was like pushing a wall. Daniel didn't even shift his weight. Don't tell me what to do. Travis pulled back his fist. The punch never landed. Daniel moved minimally, just enough that Travis's fist hit air, the momentum carrying him forward into a stumble. He caught himself face red with rage and humiliation. Fight back, Travis shouted. Come on, tough guy. Show everyone what you really are. What I really am, Daniel said quietly, is a janitor who thinks you should go home. Travis pulled something from his pocket, a knife small but sharp, the kind of thing that could kill just as easily as a sword. The lobby went silent, everyone backing away. Travis, Claire said, stepping forward. Put it down, now. Stay out of this. Travis waved the knife wildly. This is between me and him, the big hero. Let's see how tough he is now. Daniel set down his mop with the same careful precision he'd shown that first day in the gym. When he looked up, Travis actually took a step back. There was something in Daniel's eyes, something that had been sleeping for 5 years but was now terribly, completely awake. You have 3 seconds to put down the knife, Daniel said, and his voice was different. Not louder, but carrying an authority that made everyone in the lobby freeze. After that, I'm going to take it from you, and you won't like how I do it. You're threatening me. Everyone heard that. You're threatening. 2 seconds. Travis lunged. It was graceless, desperate, the attack of a drunk man with a weapon he didn't know how to use. Daniel moved like water and lightning. He redirected Travis's arm, twisted his wrist in a way that made the knife clatter across the marble floor, then swept his legs and controlled his descent to the ground. The whole sequence took less than a second, but Daniel didn't stop there. His hand went to Travis's throat, not squeezing, but positioned perfectly for a killing strike. His other hand had Travis's arm bent at an angle that was a breath away from breaking, and in his eyes was nothing. No anger, no fear, just the empty efficiency of a machine designed for violence. Daniel, Claire said softly. Daniel, it's over. For a moment, Daniel didn't seem to hear her. He was somewhere else, some dusty street or mountain pass where violence had different rules. Then Emma's face flickered across his memory, and he released Travis like he was radioactive. Travis scrambled away, gasping, his suit torn and his dignity shattered. Security finally arrived far too late to matter. The police were called, statements were taken, and Travis was arrested for assault with a deadly weapon. But the damage was done. Daniel stood in the lobby surrounded by witnesses, all of whom had seen what Claire had seen the moment when the janitor mask slipped and something much more dangerous looked out. That night, Daniel didn't go home immediately. He went to the gym, the old one in the basement of a community center where he trained alone in the early morning hours. He needed to burn off the adrenaline to push his body until his mind could find quiet again. He was halfway through his routine when he realized he wasn't alone. Claire stood in the doorway, still in her business suit, watching him work the heavy bag with combinations that were too precise to be anything but military. "How did you find me?" "I had you followed after the incident. I wanted to make sure you were okay." Daniel threw another combination, the bag jumping with each impact. "I'm fine." "No, you're not. You're spiraling. I can see it. You don't know what you're seeing." "I know exactly what I'm seeing." Claire moved closer, careful but unafraid. "I'm seeing someone who's built a prison out of his own guilt and is terrified he's breaking out." Daniel stopped breathing hard, sweat running down his face. "You read the report about Rachel?" It wasn't a question. Claire nodded anyway. "Then you know why I can't be that person anymore. Violence follows violence. It spreads like a disease. It touched my family once. I won't let it happen again. It wasn't your fault. Everything that happens to the people around me is my fault. That's what responsibility means. That's what leadership means. You should understand that." Claire did understand. It was the weight she carried every day, every decision that affected thousands of employees. But hers was a corporate burden. His was written in blood. "Emma needs a father," she said. "Not a ghost. Not someone so afraid of what he was that he can't be anything else. Emma needs a father who comes home every night, who doesn't have enemies, who doesn't attract violence like a magnet. And yet violence found you anyway. Travis would have attacked someone today regardless. Would you rather it had been someone who couldn't defend themselves?" Daniel unwrapped his hands slowly, methodically. "There's always a justification, always a reason why this time is different, why this violence is necessary. That's how it starts. That's how you wake up one day with blood on your hands and can't remember when they got dirty. Or," Claire said, "that's how you save people. That's how you protect the innocent. That's how you make sure other little girls don't lose their mothers." Daniel's head snapped up, and for a moment Claire thought she'd gone too far. The temperature in the room seemed to drop 10 degrees. "Careful," he said softly. "Why?" "Because you might hurt me." "You won't. You can't. It's not who you are, no matter how much you want to pretend otherwise. You're not a killer trying to be good. You're a protector trying not to care." "You don't know me." "I'm starting to." Claire pulled out her phone, showed him a video. It was security footage from the lobby, but not from today. From last week, Daniel helping an elderly woman with her groceries, making her laugh. Daniel teaching a young security guard a better way to stand to ease his back pain. Daniel finding a lost child and staying with her, making origami animals out of paper towels until her mother arrived. "This is who you are," Claire said. "The violence isn't the core, it's the tool, and a tool doesn't define the hand that wields it." Daniel watched the footage, seeing himself through her eyes. It was disorienting, like looking at a stranger who wore his face. "Why do you care?" he asked. Claire was quiet for a moment, then, "Because I recognize something in you. The need to be strong enough that nothing can hurt you again. The weight of knowing that strength isn't enough. The fear that underneath everything you've built, you're still that scared person hiding while others die." "I'm not scared." "No, you're terrified. Not of dying, not of fighting. You're terrified of being who you really are because you think that person is a monster. But monsters don't mourn their victims. Monsters don't spend 5 years doing penance. Monsters don't love their daughters the way you love Emma." Daniel's phone buzzed, a text from Emma's babysitter. "Where are you?" Emma's asking. "I have to go," he said. "Daniel, my daughter needs me." He left Claire standing in the empty gym, surrounded by the echoes of impacts and the ghost of violence barely contained. When Daniel got home, Emma was at the dining table, but she wasn't doing homework. She was reading something on a tablet, her face serious in a way that made Daniel's stomach clench. "Hey, kiddo."
Sorry I'm late. Emma looked up at him with eyes that were too knowing. There's a video from your work today. Everyone at school saw it. Daniel's heart sank. Of course, everyone had a phone. Everyone recorded everything. Emma, is this why Mom died, because of what you used to do? The question hit like a physical blow. Daniel pulled out a chair, sat down heavily. The moment he dreaded for 3 years was here, and he had no script for it. How do you... I'm not stupid, Dad. I hear things. I see things. The way you move, the way people look at you sometimes. The nightmares you pretend not to have. And now this. She turned the tablet toward him. The video was viral already. Janitor takes down armed attacker in seconds. Your mom, Daniel said slowly, died in a car accident. But it wasn't really an accident, was it? Daniel looked at his daughter, 7 years old and already carrying weight she shouldn't have to bear. The truth was a burden, but lies were worse. They rotted foundations, destroyed trust. I don't know, he admitted. Maybe not. There were, people who wanted to hurt me, who might have hurt her to get to me. But I don't know for sure, and I never will. Emma was quiet for a moment, processing this confirmation of her worst suspicions. Then, is that why you stopped? Why you became just a janitor? You're never just anything, Em. Every job has dignity if you do it well. But yes, that's why I stopped, to keep you safe. But you didn't stop. Not really. You just pretended. I tried. Mom wouldn't want you to pretend, Iki, Emma said with the certainty only children can manage. She used to say you were a hero, that you saved people. I also hurt people. Bad people. Mostly. Not always. Sometimes people who were just in the wrong place. Sometimes people who were just following orders like I was. Emma studied him with Rachel's eyes, seeing through him the way her mother always had. The man today, he was going to hurt someone. Yes. So you stopped him. Yes. Then you're still a hero, just a sad one. The simplicity of it, the pure childhood logic, broke something in Daniel. He pulled Emma into a hug, holding her tight, feeling the weight of trying to be two different people at once. I love you, kiddo. I love you too, Dad. But you need to stop being so sad. Mom wouldn't like it. That night after Emma was asleep, Daniel stood on his apartment's small balcony, looking out at the city. His phone rang. Unknown number, but he recognized the area code. Quantico. Daniel Briggs? Who's asking? Colonel James Mitchell. We haven't met, but I knew your reputation. I'm calling because today's incident has attracted attention. I'm not interested. I'm not recruiting. I'm warning. The man you took down, Travis Hoffman. He's connected. His brother is Marcus Hoffman. The name hit Daniel like ice water. Marcus Hoffman. Arms dealer, terrorist, facilitator. Someone Daniel had hunted for 2 years in Afghanistan without success. That's not possible. We checked. Different last names, different mothers, but brothers nonetheless. And Marcus has been looking for you since you left the service. The accident with your wife. We could never prove it, but you knew. Daniel's voice was dangerous. You knew and you didn't tell me. We suspected, no proof, and you'd already left. We thought if you stayed quiet, stayed hidden, it would blow over. But this video, your face all over the internet. Daniel, he's going to come for you. Let him come. It's not just you anymore. You have a daughter. The words hung in the air like a threat and a reminder both. How long do I have? Our intelligence suggests he's in Europe right now, but he has people here. Days, maybe a week before they move. You need to disappear. We can help with that. New identity, new location. I'm done running. Daniel. He hung up. Running meant leaving everything Emma knew, her school, her friends, the memories of her mother that lived in these walls. Running meant Marcus Hoffman won that Rachel's death meant nothing, that 5 years of trying to be better were wasted. His phone buzzed, a text from Claire. "We need to talk. I know about Marcus Hoffman." Of course she did. Claire Kingsley didn't do anything halfway. They met at her office at midnight. The building was empty except for security, the city lights painting shadows on the walls. Claire was dressed down jeans and a sweater, looking more human than he'd ever seen her. "Your investigator is good," Daniel said. "The best money can buy. He says you have a week, maybe less." "That matches what I heard." "You need to run." "No." "Daniel, this isn't about your pride." "It's not about pride. It's about Emma. She's lost enough. I won't make her lose everything else, too." Claire studied him for a moment, then nodded. "Okay, then we fight." You think I'm going to let one of my employees face this alone? Besides, Marcus Hoffman has been on several government watch lists for years. Taking him down would be a public service. This isn't your fight. It became my fight the moment you saved me from those thieves. Or maybe before that, when you showed me that strength isn't about domination. Either way, I'm in. You don't understand what you're getting into. Marcus Hoffman isn't some corporate rival. He's killed people, sold weapons that have killed thousands more. He has resources, connections, and absolutely no moral boundaries. Then it's a good thing I have something he doesn't. What's that, you? Daniel shook his head. I'm one man. One man who hasn't fought for real in 5 years. You're one man who Marcus Hoffman has been afraid to face directly for 5 years. One man who scared him enough that he went after your family instead of you. That tells me everything I need to know. She pulled out a tablet, showed him satellite images, financial records, communication intercepts. My company doesn't just do AI. We have defense contracts, intelligence partnerships. I've been tracking Marcus Hoffman for the last 6 hours. He's in Prague right now, but he has a team in Seattle. 4 men, all former military, all with records that would make your skin crawl. You've been busy. I'm always busy. The question is whether you're going to let me help or whether you're going to do something stupidly noble and face them alone. Daniel looked at the intelligence she'd gathered. It was good professional, the kind of data that would have taken him weeks to compile on his own. But more than that, he saw something in Claire's eyes. He recognized the need to fight for something that mattered, to use strength for purpose instead of just power. If we do this, he said, we do it my way. No unnecessary violence, no collateral damage. We protect Emma first, everything else second. Agreed. And when it's over, I go back to being a janitor. No more videos, no more attention. Just invisible. Claire hesitated, then nodded. If that's what you want, it's what needs to happen. They spent the next 3 hours planning. Claire's resources, combined with Daniel's tactical knowledge, created a framework that might actually work. They identified the likely approaches Hoffman's team would take, the weaknesses they could exploit, the allies they could call on. There's one more thing, Claire said as dawn approached. The paralyzed Marine Marcus Wells. He called again. He wants to help. No, he's been through enough. He said you'd say that. He also said to tell you that sitting in a wheelchair doesn't mean he can't still fight, just differently. Daniel was quiet for a moment, remembering Marcus as he'd been young, strong, eager to prove himself. Then remembering him on the ground, unable to move, eyes full of fear and confusion. He doesn't owe me anything. He thinks differently. He's in Portland, 3 hours away. Former intelligence analyst, now works in cybersecurity. He's already tracking Hoffman's digital footprint. The weight of other people's loyalty, their willingness to fight for him when he'd spent 5 years fighting not to fight, was almost overwhelming. Why? Daniel asked, not really expecting an answer. Why do people keep trying to save me? Because, Claire said softly, you're worth saving, even if you don't believe it yourself. The next day, Daniel went to work as normal. It was important that Hoffman's team see no change in routine, no sign that he knew they were coming. He mopped floors, emptied trash, played the invisible man he'd perfected being. But underneath, he was counting exits, memorizing patterns, noting where security cameras had blind spots. The building he'd cleaned for 18 months became a tactical map in his mind, every corridor a potential battle space, every room a possible trap or refuge. Emma was at school, but not her usual one.
Claire had arranged for her to attend a private academy for the week one with security that rivaled some military bases. Emma had protested, but Daniel had been firm. It was temporary, necessary, and not negotiable. "You're doing the thing again," Carl said, appearing beside him in the third-floor break room. "What thing?" "The waiting thing. Like a spring being compressed. I've seen it before in guys coming back from deployment. Whatever's coming, Dan, you don't have to face it alone." Daniel looked at his supervisor. This simple man who'd never asked questions, never pushed, just given him a job when he needed one. I know you're not just a janitor, known it from day one. Don't know the specifics, don't need to. But I know something's hunting you, and I know you're getting ready to fight back." "It's not your problem, Carl." "Maybe not. But you're my friend, and friends don't let friends fight alone." The word friend hit unexpectedly hard. Daniel had avoided connections for 5 years, keeping everyone at arm's length. But somehow, despite his best efforts, people had gotten close anyway. It's dangerous. So's driving in Seattle traffic, but I do that every day. Carl pulled out his phone, showed Daniel a photo. It was Carl 20 years younger in army fatigues somewhere in the desert. "Infantry, Gulf War. I'm not force recon or whatever secret squirrel stuff you did, but I know which end of a rifle is which. You need backup. You got it." That afternoon, Marcus Wells rolled into the building's lobby in his wheelchair, and Daniel felt the past and present collide. Marcus was different older, certainly the chair, obviously, but there was something else. A stillness that hadn't been there before, a depth that spoke of hard-won wisdom. "You look good," Marcus said, extending his hand. Daniel shook it, noting the strength still there, the calluses from wheelchair athletics. "You too. I heard you got married." 2 years ago. Sarah's pregnant, actually. Due in 3 months. The normalcy of it, the life Marcus had built from the wreckage Daniel had left him in, was both inspiring and shaming. "Marcus, you don't have to stop." Marcus's voice was firm. "We've got maybe 6 hours before Hoffman's team moves based on the chatter I'm intercepting. So we can spend that time with you apologizing and me forgiving you again, or we can spend it making sure you live long enough to walk Emma down the aisle someday. Your choice." Claire appeared from the elevator, having changed from her business suit into tactical pants and a fitted black shirt. She looked like a different person, someone who'd remembered what it felt like to have a body meant for more than sitting in boardrooms. "The building's been evacuated," she said. "Gas leak very convincing. Only security and our people remain." "Our people? You didn't think you were the only veteran working here, did you? Turns out Valencia Innovations employs quite a few former military. All volunteers, all briefed, all ready." Daniel looked around the lobby, seeing shadows moving into position. He recognized some of them, the security guard he'd taught about posture, a programmer from the 4th floor who moved like a former ranger, the cafeteria manager whose tattoos suddenly made more sense. "This was supposed to be my fight." "Yeah, well," Marcus said, pulling out a laptop and setting up on a nearby desk. "You always were bad at fighting alone. Even in training, you were always about the team. Time to remember that." The sun was setting, painting the city in shades of gold and red. Somewhere out there, 4 men were preparing to come for him. But for the first time in 5 years, Daniel wasn't facing the darkness alone. His phone buzzed, a text from Emma. "Dad, I know something's happening. The lady at the school told me you're keeping me safe. I love you. Mom would be proud." He typed back, "I love you too, kiddo. See you soon." "They're moving," Marcus announced, his fingers flying over his keyboard. 4 vehicles approaching from different directions. They'll be here in 20 minutes. Daniel felt the old, familiar calm descending the clarity that came before action. But this time it was different. This time he wasn't a weapon pointed at an enemy. He was a shield standing in front of what mattered. "Positions," he said, and his voice carried the authority of someone who'd given such orders before and had them followed without question. People moved the building, becoming a carefully orchestrated trap. Claire stayed beside him, checking the pistol she'd produced from somewhere, her movements competent, if not expert. "You know how to use that Israeli military training. Remember, I'm no expert, but I can point and shoot. Hopefully it won't come to that. But it might. Yes, it might." Marcus looked up from his laptop. Daniel, there's something else. Hoffman himself, he's not in Prague. The intelligence was wrong. He's here in Seattle. He's coming personally. The news changed everything. Marcus Hoffman hadn't left his safe zones in years, too paranoid, too protected. If he was coming personally, this was more than revenge. This was something else, something final. How many with him? Unknown, but he doesn't travel light. Daniel nodded, his mind recalculating, adjusting the plan. Then we give him what he wants. Me in the open, apparently vulnerable. That's suicide, Claire protested. No, it's bait. He wants me badly enough to come himself. He'll take the shot when he sees it. And when he does, we take him down, Marcus finished. Classic ambush. You're betting your life that his hatred makes him stupid, Claire said. I'm betting that 5 years of waiting has made him impatient, that he wants to do this himself to see me die with his own eyes. The building's lights flickered Marcus's signal that the enemy was in position. Daniel moved to the center of the lobby, visible through the glass doors, apparently alone and unaware. The janitor staying late, pushing his mop in predictable patterns. The first indication was a reflection in the polished floor movement, outside shadows that didn't belong. Then the doors opened quiet, but not silent enough. 4 men entered, weapons drawn, but not raised, moving with professional precision. Daniel kept mopping, let them get closer, closer, until, "Hello, Daniel?" The voice came from behind him. Marcus Hoffman had come through the loading dock, must have had building plans, known the approach routes. Daniel turned slowly, saw a man he'd last glimpsed through a sniper scope in Kandahar. Older now, grayer, but with the same dead eyes that had looked back at him through the scope. Marcus, 5 years? 5 years I've waited for this. You killed my men, destroyed my operations, cost me millions. You were selling weapons to people who used them on children. I was selling product to customers, supply and demand. The same capitalism that built this building that pays your, what is it now, $15 an hour. $18.50, actually. Hoffman laughed, a sound like breaking glass. Even better, the great Daniel Briggs reduced to minimum wage, but that wasn't enough for me. Not after what you took from me. So you killed my wife. I gave the order. Someone else turned the wheel, cut the brake line just enough. She probably never knew what happened. Daniel's hand tightened on the mop handle, the only external sign of the fury building inside him. Around them, hidden in shadows, his allies waited for the signal. You could have come for me directly. Where's the pain in that? No, I wanted you to suffer first, to lose everything the way I did, and then when you'd been broken down to nothing, when you were just a janitor pretending the past didn't exist, then I'd come for you. I'm sorry about your men, Daniel said, and meant it. They were soldiers following orders. They didn't deserve to die. Save your philosophy. You're going to die tonight, Daniel, but first I want you to know that after you're gone, I'm going to find your daughter. Not to kill her, I'm not a complete monster, but to raise her. To tell her stories about her father, the real stories. To make her understand what kind of man you really were. That was the line. The absolute unforgivable line. Daniel moved. The mop handle became a weapon in Daniel's hands. Not swung, but thrust precisely at Hoffman's gun hand, sending the weapon skittering across the marble floor. But Hoffman's men were already moving, and Daniel knew he couldn't take them all, not anymore, not after 5 years of choosing peace over practice. Then the shadows came alive. Carl appeared from behind a pillar, the old infantry training still there, in the way he moved, tackling one of Hoffman's men with the confidence of someone who'd done it before. The programmer from the 4th floor, James Daniel remembered, emerged from the stairwell, his former ranger training evident as he disarmed another attacker with clinical efficiency. But it was Claire who surprised everyone. She didn't shoot, didn't fight. Instead, she spoke, her voice cutting through the chaos with corporate authority. Valencia Innovation Security Protocol 7 is now active. This building is in full lockdown. The FBI has been notified and is en route. You have approximately 3 minutes before this becomes a federal incident. It was a bluff, mostly. But the certainty in her voice, the casual mention of protocols and federal involvement, made Hoffman's men hesitate. In combat, hesitation was death. Daniel used that moment to close the distance to Hoffman, but the arms dealer was already moving faster than his age suggested. They collided in the center of the lobby, 2 men carrying the weight of history between them. Hoffman fought Dirty Eye's throat groin, all the targets that mattered in real violence. But Daniel had learned his dirty fighting in places where the only rule was survival. They traded strikes that would have crippled normal men, each absorbing punishment that spoke of lives lived hard. "You've gotten soft," Hoffman gasped, landing a knee to Daniel's ribs that sent lightning through his chest. "Maybe," Daniel admitted, trapping the next knee and converting it into a takedown. "But you've gotten slow." They hit the ground hard, rolling across the marble, each trying for the dominant position. Around them, the fight continued. Carl had his man in a chokehold. James was trading strikes with another, and Claire had somehow ended up behind the reception desk with Marcus, who was frantically typing on his laptop while she covered him with her pistol. "Daniel!" Marcus's voice cut through the noise. "Hoffman's got backup coming. 2 more vehicles 90 seconds out." Hoffman laughed, blood running from his nose. "You think this is just about me? I've got 20 men coming. You're all dead." Daniel got position mount control and started striking down. Not wild swings, but targeted impacts designed to end consciousness. Hoffman covered up, weathering the storm, then exploded upward with a technique Daniel didn't expect, a perfect bridge and roll that spoke of Brazilian jiu-jitsu training. Now Hoffman was on top, and he had something in his hand, a knife small and wickedly sharp, the kind of thing that could slip between ribs and find hearts. Daniel caught his wrist just as the blade descended the point, stopping an inch from his throat. "You took everything from me," Hoffman hissed, putting his weight behind the blade. "My business, my reputation, my brother." "Your brother?" Daniel's confusion was genuine. Travis Hoffman, the drunk from yesterday, was this man's brother. "He called me after you humiliated him, told me you were here hiding in plain sight. It was perfect poetic even. The great Daniel Briggs brought down by a drunk with a grudge." The blade pressed closer, and Daniel felt his strength failing. 5 years of choosing not to fight had cost him the edge that might have saved him. But then he heard something that changed everything. "Dad," Emma's voice coming from the main entrance. She wasn't supposed to be here, was supposed to be safe at the secure school, but there she was standing in the doorway with her babysitter, both frozen by the violence before them. "Emma, run!" Daniel roared, finding strength he didn't know remained. But Emma didn't run. 7 years old, Rachel's daughter as much as his. She walked forward with a courage that had no business existing in someone so young. "Stop hurting my dad," she said to Hoffman, her voice steady despite the tears on her cheeks. Hoffman looked at her, and something flickered in his dead eyes. For a moment he might have been human. Then his face hardened. "Perfect," he said. "She can watch her father die the way I watched you kill my—" The shot was impossibly loud in the marble lobby. Hoffman jerked his eyes wide with surprise, the knife falling from nerveless fingers. He looked down at the spreading red stain on his chest, then up at the mezzanine level where the shooter stood. Marcus Wells in his wheelchair at the railing, a rifle across his lap. "I might not be able to walk," Marcus called down, "but I can still shoot straight." Hoffman tried to speak, but only blood came out. He toppled sideways, and Daniel pushed him off, scrambling to his feet and running to Emma, scooping her up and turning her away from the violence. "I've got you, kiddo. I've got you." "I was so scared," Emma sobbed into his shoulder. "The lady at the school said there was an emergency, that I had to come, but then we saw the fighting and—" "Shh, it's okay. It's over." But it wasn't. The sound of approaching vehicles, the screech of tires, the sound of doors opening. Hoffman's backup had arrived. "Positions," Daniel barked, setting Emma behind the reception desk where Claire and Marcus had created a makeshift command post. "Claire, watch her." But before anyone could move, the windows exploded inward in a shower of glass and smoke grenades. The lobby filled with dense gray clouds, visibility dropping to 0. Daniel heard boots, lots of them moving with tactical precision. This was it. They were outnumbered, outgunned, and half their people were already injured from the first fight. Daniel reached for the pistol Hoffman had dropped, knowing it wouldn't be enough, knowing that sometimes courage meant dying well, rather than living badly. Then through the smoke, he heard something that didn't make sense. Screaming, but not from his people. The sound of impacts of bodies hitting the ground, but the pattern was wrong. Someone was attacking Hoffman's reinforcements and doing it with devastating efficiency. The smoke began to clear, and Daniel saw him. A figure in black tactical gear, no insignia, no identification moving through Hoffman's men like death itself. Every movement was economical, every strike precise. In 30 seconds, 20 men were down neutralized with a combination of martial arts and less lethal weapons that spoke of skills beyond even special operations. The figure turned toward Daniel, pulling off the tactical mask to reveal a face he recognized from intelligence briefings but had never seen in person. "John Mitchell," the man said, extending his hand. "Colonel Mitchell's son. Former Delta Force current. Well, that's classified. But let's say I owe you a debt from Afghanistan. You saved my unit once, probably don't even remember. Time to return the favor." Daniel shook the offered hand, his mind trying to process the rapid shift from certain death to inexplicable salvation. "How did you— your Marine friend there?" Mitchell nodded toward Marcus. "Has been lighting up every military back channel for the last 12 hours. Turns out you've got more friends than you know. People who remember what you did, who you saved, what you sacrificed. We've been watching waiting. When Hoffman made his move, we made ours." Sirens were approaching now, real ones, not the bluff Claire had threatened. The FBI, local police, everyone drawn by the gunfire and chaos. "You need to go," Mitchell said. "My team will handle the cleanup, the explanations. Hoffman was on several watch lists. This will be written up as a justified intervention. But you need to disappear before questions get asked that you don't want to answer." "I can't just—" "Yes, you can. Take your daughter and go. We'll handle the rest." Daniel looked around the destroyed lobby, Carl sitting on the floor, exhausted but triumphant, James being bandaged by another security guard, Marcus in his wheelchair, the rifle across his lap like he'd never left the Marines, Claire holding Emma, both of them watching him with eyes that held too much understanding. "Thank you," he said to all of them. "Thank you for not letting you be alone," Claire finished. "That's what people do for each other, even stubborn former Marines who think they have to carry everything themselves." Emma pulled away from Claire and ran to Daniel, wrapping her arms around his waist. "Can we go home now?" "Yeah, kiddo, we can go home." But as they walked toward the exit, Claire called out, "Daniel!" He turned. "This doesn't end here. You know that, right? Hoffman's dead, but his organization isn't. There will be questions, investigations, possibly retaliation." "I know." "So what are you going to do? Keep hiding. Keep pretending to be nobody." Daniel looked down at Emma, then back at Claire. "I'm going to be her father. That's somebody enough." 3 days later, the media had moved on to other stories. The incident at Valencia Innovations was explained as a failed corporate espionage attempt that had turned violent. Marcus Hoffman's death was attributed to self-defense during the commission of multiple felonies. The building's damage was already being repaired and life was returning to normal. Except nothing was normal anymore. Daniel sat in Claire's office, not the formal conference room, but her actual office, the place where she made the decisions that moved millions. Emma was at school, the regular one, with security that was discreet but present. The immediate danger had passed, but the infrastructure of protection remained. "The board wants to give you a commendation," Claire said, pouring coffee from a machine that probably cost more than his monthly rent. "Heroic employees saved the company, that sort of thing." "No." "I told them you'd say that. I also told them that if they pushed it, you'd probably disappear entirely, and then they'd have to explain why their hero janitor vanished. Thank you. Don't thank me yet." She pulled out a folder thick with documents. "Hoffman's organization is in chaos, but it won't stay that way. Someone will take over someone who might come looking for revenge. You need protection, resources, options. I need to be left alone." "That's not how the world works, and you know it. You've been visible now. The video, the incident, federal databases that now have your name flagged. You can't go back to being invisible." She was right, and Daniel hated that she was right. The last 5 years had been an illusion, a desperate attempt to opt out of a game that didn't allow retirement. "So what do you suggest? Work for me, not as a janitor, as what you really are. Head of special security, but off the books. You'd handle the threats that normal security can't, the problems that require your particular skills. In exchange, you get resources, protection for Emma, and a salary that means she'll never want for anything." "I told you I don't fight anymore. I know, and I'm not asking you to. I'm asking you to protect, to use those skills to keep people safe, not hurt them,
To be what you've always really been, a guardian, not a warrior. Daniel was quiet for a long moment, thinking about Emma, about the future, about the impossibility of ever really leaving the past behind. There would be conditions. Name them. I work alone. No team, no operations, no military structure, just me doing what needs to be done. Accepted. Emma never knows. As far as she's concerned, I'm still maintenance staff. Agreed. And if I say something's too dangerous, if I refuse a job that's final, no arguments, no pressure. Claire smiled. You really think you can refuse to help someone in danger? That's not who you are, Daniel. That's never been who you are. She was right about that, too. One more thing, Daniel said. Marcus Wells. He needs a job, something that uses his skills but keeps him safe. His wife's pregnant, and he's done enough fighting for one lifetime. Already done. He starts Monday as head of cybersecurity. The wheelchair accessibility modifications are being installed as we speak. Daniel stood to leave, then paused. Why are you really doing this? And don't tell me it's about protection or corporate security. You could hire a dozen firms for that. Claire was quiet for a moment, then stood and walked to her window, looking out at the city she'd conquered. My parents died when I was 15, she said quietly. Car accident, supposedly, but I've always wondered if it was really an accident. They were investigating corporate fraud, had evidence against some very powerful people. After they died, I found their notes, their evidence, but I was just a kid, couldn't do anything about it. She turned back to face him. So I built this empire, gained power, influence, resources. I've been hunting those responsible for 23 years, and last week I found the last one. He's in prison now for unrelated crimes, but he's there because I made sure the FBI got the right information at the right time. You used your power for justice. I used my power for revenge that looked like justice. But watching you these last weeks, seeing how you chose to walk away from that need, how you've carried your guilt and responsibility, it made me realize that I've been fighting the wrong war. I built all this to destroy people, but maybe it's time to build something else, to protect people instead. And you think I can help with that? I think we can help each other. You need resources to keep Emma safe. I need someone who understands that real strength isn't about domination. Together we might actually do some good. Daniel extended his hand. Partners then. But I'm still mopping the floors. Claire laughed, shaking his hand. Fine, but you're getting a raise. That evening, Daniel was in the parking garage, heading to his old truck, when he heard footsteps behind him. His hand moved instinctively to the concealed knife he'd started carrying again, then relaxed when he saw who it was. Carl, his supervisor, looking older and more tired than usual. Hell of a week, Carl said. Yeah. You gonna tell me what really happened? Not the corporate spin, but the truth. Daniel considered lying, maintaining the fiction, but Carl deserved better. Someone from my past came for me. Friends helped stop him. That's the simple version. And the complex version would take longer than we have and involve things that are better left buried. Carl nodded, accepting that. You staying on? Yeah, someone's got to keep these floors clean. That's not what I mean, and you know it. Daniel looked at his friend, and he realized that's what Carl had been for months without him noticing. I'm staying. This is home now. Emma's life is here. I'm not running anymore. Good. Because I've got $10 in the office pool that says you last another year before some other video goes viral. They both laughed, the sound echoing in the concrete garage. Carl, what you did the other night jumping in like that? Was stupid, I know. My wife already gave me the lecture. But Dan, I've been watching you for 18 months. You show up early, work late, never complain. You help people without them asking, without wanting credit. You're the kind of man I want my sons to become. So when I saw you were in trouble, there wasn't a choice. That's what friends do. The simple declaration of friendship, unasked for and unconditional, hit Daniel harder than any of Hoffman's punches had. Thank you. Don't thank me. Just promise me something. What? Stop trying to do everything alone. You've got people now. Use them. Daniel drove home through the Seattle evening traffic, his mind processing everything that had happened, everything that had changed. At a red light, his phone buzzed. A text from Emma. Made a new friend at school today. Her name is Sophie. Can she come over for dinner?
He typed back, "Of course, pick up pizza on my way home." Another text immediately, with pineapple. "Never. That's where I draw the line." Mom would have gotten pineapple. Daniel smiled, remembering Rachel's terrible taste in pizza, the fights they'd had over it, the way she'd sneak pineapple onto his half just to annoy him. "Fine, half with pineapple." "Love you, Dad." "Love you too, kiddo." The light turned green and Daniel drove on, carrying his ghosts more lightly than before. That night, after Emma and her new friend had demolished the pizza and were working on homework, Daniel stood in the kitchen doing dishes and thinking about cycles, about patterns, about the impossibility of ever really leaving the past behind. His phone rang. Mitchell, the Delta Force operator who'd saved them. "Briggs? We have a problem. Hoffman's lieutenant, the one who actually carried out the hit on your wife, he's still out there, and he's disappeared." Daniel's hand stilled on the plate he was washing. "Name, Viktor Kozlov. Former Spetsnaz, works exclusively for the highest bidder. Hoffman was keeping him on retainer, but with Hoffman dead, he's in the wind." "Why are you telling me this?" "Because he's the loose end, the one who actually killed Rachel. And based on the chatter we're picking up, he's decided to finish what Hoffman started. Not for money, but for reputation. Can't have people thinking he left a job undone." In the living room, Daniel could hear Emma laughing with her friend. The sound was precious, worth any price to protect. How long at the unknown? Could be weeks, could be months, but he's coming. Then I'll be ready. "Daniel, this guy is different from Hoffman. He's not emotional, not seeking revenge. He's a professional. He'll come when you least expect it, from an angle you haven't considered." "I said I'll be ready." Mitchell was quiet for a moment. "We can help. Make you disappear, new identity, new life." "No, I'm done running. If Kozlov wants to come, let him come. This is my home now. These are my people. I'm not leaving." "Your funeral?" "Maybe, but not today." After Mitchell hung up, Daniel finished the dishes, helped the girls with their homework, made sure they brushed their teeth. Normal things, father things, the life he'd built from the ashes of what he'd been. Later, after Emma was asleep, he went to the small storage unit he rented across town. Inside was a footlocker he hadn't opened in 5 years. His old gear, his weapons, the tools of a trade he'd tried to leave behind. He opened it now, checking each item, ensuring everything still functioned. He didn't want to be that person again. But to protect Emma, to keep the life they'd built, he'd become whatever he needed to be. The next morning, Claire found him in the gym at 5 a.m., working the heavy bag with combinations that were sharper, more focused than before. "Heard about Kozlov," she said. "News travels fast." "Mitchell thought you should know. He also thought you might do something stupid like try to hunt Kozlov yourself." The thought crossed my mind. "But—" Daniel stopped, breathing hard, sweat running down his face. "But that's the old me. The one who sought out fights, who went looking for war. I'm trying to be different. Even if it means waiting for him to come to you. Even if it means living with that threat hanging over you. Especially then. Emma needs stability, normalcy. If I go hunting Kozlov, even if I succeed, I become that person again. And that person can't raise a daughter." Claire moved closer, and Daniel saw she was dressed for training. Workout clothes that looked expensive, but functional. "Teach me," she said. "What? Teach me what you know. Not the jujitsu sport stuff, but the real thing. What you used the other night. Why?" "Because Hoffman's organization isn't the only threat out there. Because I've made enemies building this company. Because I'm tired of being afraid." "I told you being dangerous doesn't make you less afraid." "No, but it gives you options, and I like having options." Daniel studied her for a moment, then nodded. "First lesson, everything you think you know is wrong. Sport fighting has rules, points, referees. Real violence has none of that. Real violence is about who's willing to do the worst things the fastest." "I'm listening." Second lesson, the best fight is the one that doesn't happen. Running, hiding, de-escalation, these aren't cowardice. They're intelligence. You only fight when all other options are gone. And when they are, then you fight like hell itself is coming for you, because it probably is. They trained for an hour, Daniel teaching her things that would never appear in any dojo. The weak points of the human body, the ways to cause maximum damage with minimum effort, the psychology of violence and how to use it. Claire was a good student, smart and dedicated, but more than that, she understood the why behind the what. She wasn't learning to be dangerous for its own sake, but as a tool for a specific purpose. "You're holding back," she said, after he'd demonstrated a particular nasty joint manipulation. "Always. Control is everything. The moment you lose control, you've lost everything." "Is that what happened with Hoffman? Did you lose control?" Daniel considered the question. "No. I wanted to when he threatened Emma. Every instinct screamed to just end him. But I held back, waited, let the situation develop. If I'd lost control, gone full aggressive, his men would have shot me and Emma would be an orphan." "So control saved you. Control saved Emma. That's all that matters." His phone buzzed, the school asking him to come pick up Emma. She was fine, but there had been an incident. Daniel found Emma in the principal's office, a bruise forming on her cheek, her knuckles scraped. Across from her sat a boy maybe 9 years old, holding a bloody tissue to his nose. "Mr. Briggs," the principal began, "there was an altercation." "He said my dad was a killer," Emma interrupted. "He said he saw the video and that you hurt people and that I was probably just like you." Daniel knelt in front of his daughter, gently examining her bruised cheek. "Did you hit him first?" Emma looked down. "Maybe." "Emma." "Yes, but he wouldn't stop saying things." Daniel turned to the boy. "Is your nose broken?" The boy shook his head, frightened by something he saw in Daniel's eyes. "Then you're lucky. My daughter pulls her punches just like I taught her. Next time think before you speak. Words can be weapons too, and you fired first." "Mr. Briggs," the principal said sternly, "we don't condone violence." "Neither do I." Emma apologized for hitting him. "But Dad—" "Now." Emma turned to the boy. "I'm sorry I hit you. I should have used my words. But," Daniel continued, "I'm not going to punish her for defending her family's honor. And if you're going to suspend her, then do it. But know that I'll be having a conversation with the school board about their anti-bullying policies and how they failed to protect my daughter from verbal assault." The principal's face went through several colors before settling on resignation. "Perhaps we can call this a learning experience for everyone. No suspension, but Emma needs to promise to come to an adult next time." "Emma, I promise." She said, not meaning it at all. In the car, Emma was quiet for a long moment. Then, "I'm sorry, Dad. I know you said fighting doesn't solve anything. Sometimes it doesn't. But sometimes, kiddo, you have to stand up for what matters. You stood up for me, for our family. I'm not happy you got in a fight, but I'm proud that you didn't let someone trash talk us without consequence. Mom would have been mad. Mom would have pretended to be mad while secretly being proud. She was tougher than both of us combined. Tell me about her. The real her, not just the nice stories." So Daniel did. He told Emma about Rachel, the combat medic who'd saved lives under fire. Rachel, the warrior who'd fought her way through medical school while raising a baby. Rachel, the protector who'd faced down a burglar with nothing but a baseball bat and attitude. "She sounds amazing," Emma said when he finished. "She was, and you're just like her. Tough, smart, and absolutely unwilling to take anyone's crap." "Is that why someone hurt her? Because she was tough?" The question was a knife between his ribs. "Maybe. Or maybe it was just random badness in a world that has too much of it. We'll never know for sure." "But you think someone did it on purpose?" "Yeah, kiddo, I do." "Will you get them?" "The person who hurt Mom?" Daniel thought about Kozlov out there somewhere, planning and preparing. "If they come for us, I'll stop them. But I'm not going hunting. That's not who I am anymore." "Who are you then?" "Your dad. That's all I need to be." That evening, Emma fell asleep on the couch, watching a movie, her head on Daniel's shoulder, the bruise on her cheek already turning purple. He carried her to bed, tucked her in, and stood in her doorway for a moment, watching her sleep. She looked so much like Rachel in these quiet moments that it physically hurt. His phone vibrated. Marcus Wells texting from his new office at Valencia Innovations. "Got something. Kozlov's financial transactions. He's moving money, setting up something big. Can you come in?" Daniel looked back at Emma, then texted Carl to ask if his wife could watch Emma for a few hours. Within minutes, Carl's wife Margaret was at the door. a grandmotherly woman who'd raised 4 boys and treated Emma like the granddaughter she didn't have yet. "Go handle what you need to handle," she said, reading something in Daniel's face. "We'll be fine." The Valencia Innovations building at night was a different creature than during the day. The repairs from the fight with Hoffman were nearly complete, but there were still traces a different shade of marble, where the floor had been replaced new glass that was slightly more reflective than the old. Marcus was in his office, multiple monitors displaying data streams that looked like abstract art to Daniel, but clearly meant something to the former Marine intelligence analyst. "Look at this," Marcus said without preamble. "Kozlov's been moving money through shell companies, but I tracked the pattern. He's not just coming for you, he's setting up a full operation. Safe houses, equipment, backup personnel. This isn't a hit, it's a campaign." Daniel studied the data, his tactical mind translating financial movements into operational planning. He's bringing a team, maybe 6-8 operators. Former Spetsnaz most likely, his old unit buddies. "Daniel, this is beyond what we handled with Hoffman. These aren't thugs or criminals. These are Tier 1 operators." "I know. Claire appeared in the doorway, and Daniel wasn't surprised. She'd probably been monitoring the building's security feed, saw him arrive. "We need to evacuate you," she said. "You and Emma somewhere safe until this is over." "There is no safe. Men like Kozlov don't stop. If we run, he follows. If we hide, he finds us. The only way this ends is face to face." "Then we bring in help. Mitchell's team, FBI, someone, and turn my life into a permanent war zone. Have Emma grow up surrounded by bodyguards and safe houses? No. This needs to end one way or another." Marcus spun his chair around to face them. "There might be another way. Kozlov's a professional, right? This is about reputation for him, not personal vengeance. What if we could damage that reputation enough that coming after you becomes bad for business? How? We leak selective information, make it known in the right circles that he botched the Rachel hit, that it was supposed to look like an accident, but he left evidence. Make him look sloppy. Contractors like him live and die by their reputation. If we can make him radioactive, make clients not want to hire him. He'd have to rebuild his rep," Daniel finished. "And coming after me would just make him look worse, like he's trying to cover up a mistake." Claire pulled out her phone and started typing. "I have contacts in the intelligence community, people who trade in this kind of information. Give me 12 hours. But Daniel shook his head. "It won't work. Not with Kozlov. He's old-school Soviet trained. Reputation matters, but completing the mission matters more. He took money to kill me and my family. Until that job is done, he's incomplete." "Then what do you suggest?" Claire asked. Daniel was quiet for a long moment, staring at the city lights through Marcus's window. Somewhere out there, Kozlov was preparing planning, turning Daniel's life into a series of tactical problems to solve. "We make him come to us," Daniel said finally. "But on our terms, our ground. Somewhere Emma won't be, somewhere civilians won't be caught in the crossfire." "The marathon," Marcus said suddenly. "The Seattle Marathon is in 5 days. The route goes right past the building. There will be thousands of people, massive crowds, perfect cover for an operator like Kozlov. But also perfect cover for us," Daniel said, his mind already working through the possibilities. "Claire, can you get me the route map's security protocols?" "Already pulling them up," she said, her tablet displaying the marathon route. "But Daniel, you're talking about using yourself as bait in the middle of a massive public event." "No, I'm talking about controlling the engagement. Kozlov will see the marathon as an opportunity, crowds to hide in chaos to escape into. But I know this city, these streets. And more importantly, I'll have help." "Help?" Daniel looked at Marcus. "How many former military do we have in the company now?" "At least 30 that I know of, maybe more." "And how many of them would volunteer for this?" "All of them, probably. You've become something of a legend after the Hoffman thing." Daniel shook his head. "I don't want legends. I want professionals who understand that this isn't a movie. People could die." "Then let me reach out," Marcus said, quietly, carefully. "See who's really ready for something like this." Claire watched them plan, these two warriors pretending to be corporate employees, and felt something she hadn't experienced in years, genuine fear for someone else. She'd built walls around her heart as carefully as she'd built her company, but somehow Daniel Briggs had found a crack in those walls.
There's something else, she said. The FBI reached out today.
They want to debrief you about Hoffman, about his organization. They're offering witness protection if you cooperate. No. Daniel, think about it. Federal protection, new identity for you and Emma. I said no, I'm done running, done hiding. Emma deserves a real life, not some fabricated existence in suburban nowhere. She deserves to visit her mother's grave, to keep her friends, to have a home. Even if that home is a battlefield. Every home is a battlefield eventually. The only question is whether you're ready when the fight comes to your door. The next morning, Daniel went through his routine as if nothing had changed. He mopped floors, emptied trash, fixed a broken paper towel dispenser in the third-floor bathroom. But he was also mapping sight lines, noting choke points, identifying positions where a sniper might set up. Carl found him on the roof during lunch, standing at the edge and looking down at the marathon route. "You're planning something," Carl said. It wasn't a question. Maybe. Something dangerous. Probably. Carl stood beside him, two men looking out at a city that had no idea what was coming. "You need help. I need you to keep Emma safe. When this happens, whatever happens, she can't be anywhere near it. My wife and I can take her for the weekend. Tell her it's a sleepover with our grandkids who are visiting. She'll be 3 cities away." Daniel looked at his friend. "You'd do that?" "Dan, my oldest son, is a Marine, did 2 tours in Afghanistan. Came back different, broken in ways I couldn't fix. He ate his gun 2 years ago." Daniel turned, seeing pain in Carl's eyes he'd hidden well. "If I'd known then what I know now, if I'd had someone like you to help him, maybe he'd still be here. So yeah, I'll keep Emma safe. And if you need more than that, if you need someone watching your back, I might be old, but I can still shoot straight." "Thank you." Daniel said the words inadequate, but all he had. That afternoon, Claire called a meeting, not in the boardroom, but in a private conference room that had been swept for bugs and had signal jammers installed. Around the table sat Marcus Mitchell, who'd flown in from wherever he'd been, and 3 other people Daniel didn't recognize. "This is Sarah Chen," Claire said, indicating an Asian woman in her 30s. "Former Air Force pararescue, now works in our IT department. This is James Morrison, the one who helped during the Hoffman fight, former Ranger currently in sales. And this is Alex Thompson, former Navy SEAL, works building maintenance." Daniel looked at Alex with surprise. "I've seen you around. You're the guy who fixed the elevator last month." "Among other things," Alex said with a slight smile. "I've been watching you too. Recognize the walk, the way you carry yourself. Takes one to know one." "They've all volunteered," Claire said. "There are others, but these 3 have the most relevant experience."
"This isn't a military operation," Daniel said carefully. "I can't promise backup extraction or even a clear mission plan. Kozlov is a ghost. He might come during the marathon, might come before, might wait until after. Anyone involved in this is accepting an undefined risk for no reward except keeping a 7-year-old girl from becoming an orphan." "Sounds like every mission I ever volunteered for," Sarah said. "Undefined risks and protecting innocence. That's the job." "Besides," James added, "we've all read Kozlov's file. The man's a monster. Even if you weren't involved, someone should stop him." Mitchell leaned forward. "I've been tracking Kozlov's known associates. 3 of them entered the country in the last 48 hours. Different ports of entry, but they're converging on Seattle. He's definitely coming, and he's bringing friends." "How many total?" Daniel asked. "Best guess 5 to 7 operators plus Kozlov. All former special forces, all with extensive combat experience." "Against the 6 of us," Marcus said. 7, Claire corrected. "I'm not sitting this out." "You're not trained for this," Daniel said immediately. "I've been training with you every morning for a week. I might not be special forces, but I can point a gun and pull a trigger. And more importantly, I have resources you need. Real-time surveillance, communication systems, legal cover if things go sideways." Daniel wanted to argue, but he recognized the look in her eyes, the same look Rachel had when she'd decided something. Immovable. "Fine, but you stay back, coordinate, don't engage directly. Unless necessary." "Claire, unless necessary," she repeated firmly. They spent the next 3 hours planning using Claire's resources to access city surveillance cameras, marathon security protocols, and building schematics. They identified likely approach routes, probable attack vectors,
optimal positions for both attack and defense. He'll want high ground, Alex said, pointing at several buildings along the route. Sniper position, clean shot, easy extraction. Or he'll go close, Sarah countered. Blade or suppressed pistol in the crowd. Marathon runners are exhausted, dehydrated, sometimes collapse. No one would notice another runner down until it was too late. He might not come at all during the marathon, James added. Could be misdirection. While we're focused on the race, he hits somewhere else. Daniel absorbed it all, his mind running scenarios, calculating probabilities. But underneath the tactical planning was a simpler truth. He was tired. Tired of fighting, tired of looking over his shoulder, tired of violence following him like a shadow. His phone buzzed. Emma texting from school. Can we get ice cream tonight? I promise I'll eat vegetables first. He texted back, deal. But real vegetables, not mac and cheese. Mac and cheese has cheese. That's dairy. That's practically a vegetable. He smiled despite everything. This was what mattered. Not the coming fight, not the ghosts of his past, but a 7-year-old girl who thought cheese was a vegetable and who deserved a father who came home every night. I need to go, he told the group. Emma gets out of school soon. We'll keep planning, Mitchell said. I'll have Overwatch positions scouted by tomorrow. As Daniel left, Claire followed him to the elevator. You don't have to do this, she said. We could still find another way. There is no other way. Not with men like Kozlov. They understand only one language, respond to only one kind of message. Violence. Resolution. One way or another, this ends during the marathon. The elevator doors opened and they stepped inside. In the confined space, Daniel could smell her perfume, something expensive but subtle. It reminded him of Rachel, not the scent, but the presence, the feeling of someone who refused to be ignored. What happens after? Claire asked. If you survive, if Kozlov is stopped, what then? Then I go back to being a janitor. Emma goes back to school without looking over her shoulder. Life becomes normal again. You really believe that's possible after everything? The elevator reached the ground floor. As the doors opened, Daniel turned to her. I have to believe it. Otherwise, what's the point of fighting? That evening, Daniel and Emma got ice cream as promised. They sat in the parlor, Emma working her way through a sundae that was more toppings than ice cream, chattering about school, her friends, the book report she had due. Dad, are you okay? She asked suddenly. Sure, kiddo. Why? You're doing the thing again, the faraway thing. Daniel forced himself to focus to be present. Sorry, just thinking about work. The janitor stuff, or the other stuff. He looked at her sharply. What other stuff? Emma gave him a look that was pure Rachel, patient, knowing, slightly exasperated. Dad, I'm 7, not stupid. I know you do more than clean buildings. I saw you fight those men. I heard what people say. What do they say? That you're a hero, that you used to be a soldier, that you're protecting people. And what do you think? Emma took a thoughtful bite of her sundae. I think you're my dad, and that's more important than all the other stuff. Yeah. But also I think Mom would be proud of you for protecting people, even if it's dangerous. Daniel reached across the table, took her small hand in his. You know I love you more than anything, right? I know. That's why you fight, not because you like it, but because you love me. The wisdom of children, unfiltered and devastating in its accuracy. Emma, this weekend you're going to stay with Mr. Carl and his wife. They have grandkids visiting and something's happening, isn't it? Something dangerous. Maybe. Hopefully not. But I want you safe while I make sure. Will you be okay? I'll be fine. I have friends helping me. Ms. Claire. Daniel blinked. How do you know about Ms. Claire? Emma rolled her eyes. She came to my school last week, set up a scholarship fund, but really she was checking on me, making sure I was okay. She pretended she didn't know me, but I could tell. You could tell. She looked at me the way Mom used to when she was worried, but trying not to show it. Daniel didn't know what to say to that, so he just squeezed Emma's hand. I'll be careful, he promised. You better be. I already lost Mom. I can't lose you too. 3 days before the marathon, Kozlov made contact. It wasn't dramatic, just a package delivered to Daniel's apartment. Inside was a single photo of Rachel's crashed car. On the back, written in Cyrillic that Daniel could read from his military days, "She died quickly. You won't." Daniel stood in his kitchen, holding the photo, feeling rage build like pressure in a boiler. This was what Kozlov wanted to make him: emotional, sloppy, reactive. But underneath the rage was something colder, more dangerous. Resolution. He called Mitchell. "He's here. He's making contact." "Any idea where—" "No, but he's close. Close enough to have this hand delivered. I'll increase surveillance. We have eyes on all your usual routes now." After the call, Daniel did something he hadn't done in 3 years. He went to Rachel's grave. The cemetery was quiet rain falling softly on the headstone. Rachel Marie Briggs, beloved wife and mother, her light lives on. "Hey baby, Daniel said softly, kneeling by the grave. "I know I haven't been by in a while. Didn't want to bring my darkness to your resting place. But things are happening and I might not get another chance." He placed his hand on the cold stone. "There's a man coming. The one who killed you, or at least the one who carried it out. I'm going to stop him. Not for revenge, you wouldn't want that, but to keep Emma safe, to end this cycle. I'm trying to be better, trying to be the man you always said I could be, but tomorrow I might have to be the man I used to be just one more time." The rain increased, running down his face like tears he wouldn't shed. "I met someone. Claire. She's nothing like you, all hard edges and ambition where you were soft and content. But she sees me, the real me, and doesn't run. I don't know what that means, don't know if it means anything, but I wanted you to know in case I don't make it through this." He stood rain-soaked and resolved. "Take care of our girl if this goes bad. I'll do my best to come home to her, but if I can't, make sure she knows she was loved. Make sure she knows her father tried to be more than just a weapon." As he walked away, the rain stopped, and for a moment sunlight broke through the clouds. Daniel didn't believe in signs, but he took it as one anyway. The day before the marathon, the team met one final time. They'd refined the plan, identified positions, established communication protocols. Everyone knew their role, their contingencies, their abort criteria. "Remember," Daniel said, "Kozlov is the primary target, but his team is just as dangerous. They're not criminals or thugs. They're professionals who've done this before. Don't underestimate them, but don't hesitate either. In a fight like this, hesitation is death." "What about civilians?" Sarah asked. "The marathon will have thousands of people. We protect them above all else. If it comes down to stopping Kozlov or protecting innocence, we protect innocence. Always." "Even if it means letting him go?" James asked. "Even then. We're not soldiers anymore. We're not at war. We're just people trying to keep other people safe." Claire had been quiet through the briefing, but now she spoke. "I've arranged medical support staged at 3 locations along the route. Trauma teams, no questions asked. I've also got lawyers on standby and connections in the mayor's office if we need political cover." "You've thought of everything," Mitchell said admiringly. "No," Claire replied, looking at Daniel. "I've thought of everything I could, but no plan survives contact with the enemy. We all know that." "Which is why we adapt," Daniel said. "Stay fluid. Stay alert. Stay alive." As the meeting broke up, Alex pulled Daniel aside. "You know this is probably a trap, right? Kozlov's too smart to attack during the marathon when we're ready for him." "I know, but he's also arrogant. He wants the challenge, wants to prove he can take me even when I'm prepared. It's not about the mission anymore. It's about professional pride. And you're counting on that. I'm counting on him being human even if he's forgotten it himself." That night, Daniel couldn't sleep. He stood on his balcony looking out at the city, thinking about all the lives going on around him, oblivious to the violence about to visit their streets. His phone rang. Emma, who was supposed to be asleep at Carl's house 3 cities away. "Can't sleep, kiddo." "No, I'm scared, Dad." "About what?" "That you won't come back, that I'll be alone." Daniel closed his eyes, feeling the weight of every choice he'd ever made. "Emma, listen to me. No matter what happens, you'll never be alone. Carl and Margaret love you. Miss Claire cares about you more than she shows. Marcus, Mitchell, all of them, they're family now. The kind you choose, not the kind you're born with. But they're not you. No, they're not.
and I'm going to do everything I can to come back to you, but if something happens, don't say it.
If something happens, I need you to know that you're the best thing I ever did. You're proof that I was more than just a soldier, more than just violence. You're proof that I could create something beautiful in a world that often isn't. Dad, please come back. I'll do my best, kiddo. I promise. After she hung up, Daniel sat in the darkness, preparing himself for what was coming. Not physically, his body knew what to do, but mentally, emotionally, spiritually, preparing to become someone he'd tried to bury one last time. His phone buzzed. A text from Claire. "You're not alone in this. Remember that." He didn't reply, but he held on to the words like a lifeline in the dark. Marathon day dawned gray and misty, perfect Seattle weather for running. Daniel positioned himself at mile marker 18, where the route passed closest to the Valencia Innovations building. If Kozlov was going to make his move, it would likely be here where the crowds were thickest and escape routes were numerous. He wore running gear blending in with the thousands of participants. But under the lightweight jacket, he wore soft body armor, and in his waistband was a compact pistol. Around him, scattered through the crowd, his team was in position. "Overwatch in position," Mitchell's voice came through his earpiece. "I've got eyes on the entire block." "Ground team ready, Sarah reported. "No sign of hostile activity." "Technical support online," Marcus said from the mobile command post Claire had set up in a van 3 blocks away. "All surveillance feeds active." "Remember," Daniel said into his throat mic, "we wait for positive identification. No one moves until we're sure." The marathoners began passing a river of humanity flowing through the streets. Daniel scanned faces, body language, looking for anything out of place. An hour passed, then 2. The elite runners had long since passed, and now it was the regular people, the weekend warriors, fighting through their walls. "Movement," Alex reported. "Northeast corner blue jacket. Could be our guy." Daniel shifted position, eyes tracking. The figure moved wrong for a runner, but right for someone trying to blend in. Then the man turned, and Daniel saw his face. Not Kozlov, just a spectator looking for someone. "Negative. Keep watching." More time passed. Daniel's nerves were stretched tight, waiting for violence that might not come. Then Marcus's voice, urgent, "I've got something. Financial transaction just hit. Kozlov paid for a parking garage 2 blocks from your position, 30 minutes ago." "He's already here," Daniel said, moving immediately. "Probably in position." The shot came from above and behind, the sound lost in the crowd's cheering until someone screamed. Daniel felt the impact, the body armor catching the round, but the force spinning him down. He rolled, found cover behind a concrete barrier as more shots followed. "Sniper northwest building, probably 8th floor," Mitchell called out, already returning fire from his overwatch position. But Daniel knew this was wrong. Kozlov wouldn't miss, wouldn't rely on a single sniper. This was distraction, misdirection. "Contact front," James's voice stressed. 3 shooters advancing through the crowd. Chaos erupted. Civilians screaming, running the marathon, dissolving into panic. Daniel saw them now, 3 men moving with purpose through the chaos, weapons coming up. He moved not away, but toward them. The first shooter saw him coming, tried to track, but Daniel was already inside his arc. A brutal strike to the throat, a twist to take the weapon, 3 shots, center mass to drop him. The second shooter turned, but Sarah was there, appearing from the crowd like a ghost. She hit him low, a perfect takedown, and had him disarmed and unconscious before he hit the ground. The third tried to run, but Alex intercepted the 2 men, colliding in a brutal exchange of strikes that ended with the shooter on the ground, Alex's knee on his neck. "Where's Kozlov?" Daniel demanded into his mic. "I don't wait." Marcus's voice was confused. "Daniel, I'm tracking a city maintenance vehicle approaching your position. It's not scheduled to be there." Daniel turned just as the van accelerated through the barrier, heading straight for him. He dove, rolled, came up running. The van skidded to a stop and Kozlov stepped out. He looked exactly like his file photo, mid-50s gray hair. Dead eyes, built like someone who'd spent a lifetime preparing for violence. He held a pistol, loosely professionally. "Daniel Briggs," he said, his accent thick, but his English clear, "you've caused me considerable inconvenience." You killed my wife. I completed a contract, nothing personal. It's personal now. Kozlov smiled, expression that never reached his eyes. Yes, I suppose it is. They stood 20 feet apart, two professionals recognizing each other across a gulf of choices and consequences. Your team is good, Kozlov said, but mine was better. Was. Past tense now, thanks to you. They were soldiers. They knew the risks. As do we all. Kozlov raised his pistol slightly. Shall we finish this like civilized men, or must we make it messy? There's nothing civilized about what you do. No, I follow rules. I complete contracts. I maintain professional standards. You're the one who walked away, who pretended he could be something else. At least I'm honest about what I am. Daniel felt the weight of the compact pistol in his waistband, knew he could draw and fire before Kozlov could fully raise his weapon. But around them, civilians were still too close, still potential collateral damage. You want me, Daniel said. Let them go. Clear the civilians, then we settle this. How noble. But no. The chaos is useful. It prevents your friends from interfering. As if on cue, Claire's voice in his earpiece. Daniel, I've got police 30 seconds out. Whatever you're going to do. Kozlov must have seen something in Daniel's face because he was already moving pistol coming up. Daniel drew and they fired simultaneously. The bullets crossed in the space between them 20 feet that might as well have been 20 miles. Daniel felt the burn across his ribs where Kozlov's shot grazed him, tearing through jacket and armor. His own shot caught Kozlov in the shoulder, spinning the Russian but not dropping him. Both men moved for cover simultaneously, their training taking over. Daniel rolled behind an overturned vendor cart while Kozlov ducked behind his van. Blood seeped through Daniel's jacket, warm and sticky, but not arterial. He could still move, still fight. Nice shot, Kozlov called out, his voice strained but steady. An inch to the right, and this would be over. Still time to finish it, Daniel replied, checking his magazine. 3 rounds left. Not enough for a prolonged engagement. Sirens were getting closer now, and Daniel could hear Mitchell coordinating with the team through his earpiece, but he tuned it out. This moment, this fight had been coming for 3 years. Everything else was just noise. Kozlov emerged from behind the van, moving with the fluid grace of someone who'd been shot before and knew how to work through it. He dropped his pistol but held a knife, now a brutal thing designed for one purpose. Let's do this the old way, Kozlov said. Blade to blade, the way our grandfathers would have. Daniel could have shot him. 3 rounds center mass end it clean. But there were still civilians crouched behind cars, frozen with fear, and any stray bullet could find innocent flesh. He holstered his pistol and drew his own knife, a simple thing he'd carried for 5 years and hoped never to use. They circled each other while Seattle burned with sirens around them. 2 aging warriors, both carrying wounds that went deeper than flesh, both fighting for different versions of honor. Kozlov attacked first, his blade work speaking of Systema training, the Russian martial art that turned violence into poetry. Daniel met him with the brutal efficiency of Marine Corps line training mixed with years of practical application. Steel rang against steel, sparked off concrete when strikes missed and hit ground instead. The Russian was good, maybe better than Daniel had been at his peak, but Daniel wasn't at his peak anymore. 5 years of choosing peace had blunted his edge, slowed his reflexes by crucial milliseconds. Kozlov's blade found flesh slicing across Daniel's forearm, then his thigh, each cut precise and debilitating. You should have kept training, Kozlov said, pressing his advantage. Peace makes men soft. Daniel gave ground, feeling his strength ebbing with his blood. But as he retreated, he remembered something Emma had said. You're my dad. That's more important than all the other stuff. He wasn't fighting as a Marine or a special operator. He was fighting as a father, and that changed everything. When Kozlov came again, Daniel didn't meet him blade to blade. Instead, he grabbed a handful of marathon cups from the ground, still full of water, and threw them at Kozlov's face. It was playground tactics utterly without honor, and it worked perfectly. Kozlov flinched, his guard dropping for just a moment. Daniel didn't waste it. He closed the distance, got inside Kozlov's reach, and drove his knee into the Russian's wounded shoulder. Kozlov screamed, his knife clattering away, and Daniel followed up with an elbow to the temple that dropped him to his knees. The knife was in Daniel's hand. Kozlov's throat exposed the moment, balanced on the edge of ending. 5 years ago, Daniel wouldn't have hesitated. The mission would have demanded Kozlov's death, and he would have delivered it without thought. But he wasn't that man anymore. "Do it!" Kozlov gasped, blood running from his nose. "Finish your revenge." "It's not revenge," Daniel said, and realized he meant it. "It's just tired. I'm tired of killing, tired of violence following violence. You killed my wife, and I'll never forgive that. But killing you won't bring her back. It'll just add another ghost to the ones I already carry." "Weak," Kozlov spat. "Maybe. Or maybe strong enough to choose something else." Police surrounded them, then weapons drawn, shouting commands. Daniel dropped the knife, raised his hands, and let them take him down. As they cuffed him, he saw Claire pushing through the crowd, her face a mask of controlled panic. "He's with us," she shouted, producing credentials that made the cops step back. "Private security licensed and authorized. We were stopping a terrorist attack." It took hours to sort out, but Claire's lawyers and connections made it happen. By evening, Daniel was in a hospital bed, stitched and bandaged, while Claire sat beside him explaining how she'd spun the story. "Kozlov's been arrested," she said. "Multiple federal agencies want him for various crimes. He'll never see freedom again. His men, 3 dead, 2 in custody. Your team performed brilliantly. A few injuries, but nothing critical." Daniel nodded, feeling the weight of survival settling on him like a blanket. "Emma. On her way. Carl's driving her back now. She's been calling every 10 minutes. They sat in silence for a moment, the hospital sounds washing over them like white noise. "You could have killed him," Claire said finally. "Everyone would have understood. Self-defense justified clean." "I know. But you didn't." "No." "Why?" Daniel thought about it, trying to find words for something that went beyond language. Because Emma was right. Being her father is more important than being a warrior, and fathers don't kill unless they have to. They protect, they defend, but they don't execute. Not when there's another choice. Claire reached out, took his hand. Her fingers were soft against his scarred knuckles. "Rachel would be proud." "Maybe. Or maybe she'd call me an idiot for letting him live." "No," Claire said with certainty. "She'd be proud. Trust me on that." The door burst open and Emma rushed in, followed by a harried-looking Carl. She threw herself at Daniel, careful of his bandages, but fierce in her embrace. "You came back," she sobbed into his chest. "You came back." "I promised, didn't I?" "Carl said you were hurt, said there was a fight." "There was, but it's over now, really over." Emma pulled back, studying his face with those 2 wise eyes. "The bad man. In jail, forever. You didn't kill him." The question hung in the air, weighted with more than a 7-year-old should understand. "No, kiddo, I didn't kill him." Emma nodded, satisfied. "Good. Mom wouldn't want you to. She'd want you to be better." Over Emma's head, Daniel saw Marcus wheel in laptop across his lap, grinning. "So," Marcus said, "the internet's going crazy. Another video of you went viral. Seattle janitor saves marathon. You're trending worldwide." Daniel groaned. "Not again." "Oh, it gets better. The mayor wants to give you a key to the city. The Marine Corps wants to recall you to active duty for a commendation. And 3 movie studios have already called Claire's office about rights to your story." "No to all of it," Daniel said immediately. "I figured. But there's one thing you might want to consider." Marcus turned his laptop around, showing a message on the screen. "It's from the Secretary of Defense. They want to create a new program helping veterans transition to civilian life. Real support, not just lip service. They want you to head it." Daniel looked at the message, at the opportunity to help others navigate the path he'd walked alone. "I'll think about it." "There's more," Claire said. "The board met while you were in surgery. They voted unanimously to create a new position, Chief of Humanitarian Security. It's not about corporate protection or personal security. It's about using our resources to protect people who can't protect themselves. Refugees abuse victims, people in danger. The salary is substantial." "I don't need money." "No, but Emma needs a college fund, and the families you'd be helping need someone who understands that violence is a last resort, not a first response." Daniel looked around the room at Emma, curled against his side, at Marcus, who'd found purpose after paralysis, at Carl, who'd become family, at Claire, who'd somehow slipped past all his defenses. This was his unit now, his mission, his reason to keep going. "Can I still mop floors?" he asked. Claire laughed, the sound filling the sterile room with warmth. "Daniel, you can do whatever you want. You've earned that right." "Then yes, to all of it. The veteran program, the humanitarian position, everything. But I keep my janitor job too. It keeps me grounded, reminds me that every job has dignity." "Deal," Claire said, then leaned down and kissed his forehead, a gesture that made Emma giggle and Marcus whistle. "Are you two dating now?" Emma asked with the blunt curiosity of childhood. Daniel and Claire looked at each other, a conversation happening in the space between their eyes. "We're figuring it out," Claire said. "Good," Emma declared. "Dad needs someone. He's been sad for too long." That night, after everyone had left and Emma had fallen asleep in the chair beside his bed, Daniel lay in the darkness thinking about cycles and choices. Kozlov was in custody, but there would always be other Kozlovs, other threats, other violence waiting to intrude on peaceful lives. But there would also be other Daniels, other warriors who chose to be guardians instead of killers, who protected instead of destroyed. And maybe with the programs they were creating, there would be more of them. Veterans who found purpose beyond war, who learned that strength wasn't about domination, but about knowing when not to fight. His phone buzzed, a text from an unknown number. He opened it cautiously, then smiled. It was a photo from Marcus Wells's wife, their newborn son, born 3 hours ago while Daniel was in surgery. The message read, "His name is Daniel Marcus Wells. We hope he grows up to be half the man his namesakes are." Daniel typed back, "Tell him to be better than us. Tell him to be whole from the start." The next morning brought lawyers and statements, paperwork, and protocols. But it also brought something else, a stream of visitors Daniel hadn't expected. The security guard he'd taught about posture came by with coffee and thanks. The programmer from the 4th floor brought a get well card signed by the entire IT department. The cafeteria manager stopped by with homemade soup that probably violated several hospital policies. "You don't get it, do you?" Carl said, watching the parade of well-wishers. "You think you were invisible all this time, just a janitor nobody noticed. But we all saw you, saw how you helped without being asked, how you treated everyone with respect, how you carried yourself with quiet dignity. You were never invisible. You were just humble." "I was hiding," Daniel corrected. "No," Carl said firmly. "You were healing. There's a difference." That afternoon, Mitchell came by for a final visit before flying back to wherever his classified work took him. "The Kozlov network is rolling up nicely, Biss," he said. "Federal agencies across 3 continents are making arrests. You didn't just stop one man, you exposed an entire organization. Will there be retaliation? Possibly, but that's what people like me are for. We'll watch, we'll protect from the shadows. You just focus on your new mission, which is living, being a father, helping others, the things that actually matter." Mitchell extended his hand and Daniel shook it, 2 warriors acknowledging each other across the divide of different choices. After Mitchell left, Claire arrived with a tablet full of documents. "The Humanitarian Security Initiative," she said. "I need your input on structure priorities recruitment." They worked for hours designing something new, a program that would identify people in danger and provide protection without violence whenever possible. It would use technology, legal resources, and human intelligence to prevent rather than respond. "We could save lives," Claire said, her eyes bright with possibility. "Real lives, not statistics. We could also make enemies. Powerful people don't like it when you protect their victims." "Then we'll deal with that when it comes. Together." "Together?" Daniel agreed, the word feeling foreign, but right on his tongue. Emma woke up, then stretching like a cat in the hospital chair. "Are you talking about work stuff?" "Sort of," Daniel said. "We're talking about helping people." "Good. That's what heroes do." "I'm not a hero, kiddo." Emma gave him the look that was pure Rachel patient-loving and absolutely certain he was wrong. "Dad, you know what a hero is. It's not someone who's never scared or never makes mistakes. It's someone who does the right thing even when it's hard. Especially when it's hard. Where'd you learn that?" "From watching you." The simplicity of it, the pure faith of a child in her father, broke something loose in Daniel's chest. Not breaking him, but breaking free the chains of guilt and self-hatred he'd wrapped around himself like armor. "Come here," he said, and Emma climbed carefully onto the hospital bed, curling against his uninjured side. "Tell me about Mom," she said. "The real stories." So Daniel did. He told her about Rachel the healer who'd saved more lives than he'd ever taken. Rachel the warrior who'd fought insurance companies and hospital bureaucracies with the same ferocity she'd once brought to battlefield medicine. Rachel, the mother who'd sung Emma to sleep with inappropriate Marine Corps cadences turned into lullabies. Claire listened too, learning about the woman whose ghost she was somehow both competing with and honoring. And in the telling, Daniel felt Rachel's presence, not as a weight, but as a blessing permission to move forward without leaving her behind. The next day, Daniel was released from the hospital. Claire drove them home, Emma chattering from the back seat about everything that had happened at Carl's house, the grandkids she'd played with the dog that had slept on her bed. When they reached the apartment building, Daniel saw something different. A banner hung from the entrance, "Welcome home, hero." The other tenants were gathered applauding as he got out of the car. "I don't," he started, but Mrs. Chen from 3B cut him off. "You saved our city," she said in accented English. "You protect us all. We know you don't want praise, but you have our gratitude." One by one they came forward. Small gifts, cards, homemade food. The invisible janitor had become visible not as a warrior but as a neighbor, a protector part of the community fabric. That night after Emma was asleep, Daniel stood on his balcony looking out at the city. Claire joined him, having stayed for dinner and apparently in no hurry to leave. "Regrets?" she asked. "About what? Not killing Kozlov, becoming visible, taking the new position." Daniel thought about it. No regrets. For the first time in 5 years, maybe longer, no regrets. Good. She moved closer and Daniel put his arm around her, feeling the warmth of another person choosing to be close to him. "This is complicated," he said. "You're my boss now, technically. Emma's attached to you. If this goes wrong, it won't." "You can't know that." "No," Claire agreed. "But I know that not trying would be worse. I've spent 10 years building walls, being strong, being untouchable. You've spent 5 years doing the same. Maybe it's time we both stopped. And if we can't, then we'll fail together, which is better than succeeding alone." Daniel turned to face her, fully seeing in her eyes the same mix of hope and fear he felt. Two damaged people standing on a balcony choosing to believe healing was possible. "Rachel would have liked you," he said. "You think—" "Yeah, she had a thing for stubborn people who thought they could save the world." "Did she save yours?" "Every day. And then Emma saved it again. And now maybe it's my turn to save someone else's." Claire kissed him, then soft and careful, mindful of his injuries, but promising more when he healed. It wasn't fireworks or passion. It was something better, understanding acceptance, the decision to try. "Stay," Daniel said when they parted. "I can't. Not tonight. Emma would ask questions, and you need to heal, and we should do this right. Then tomorrow we start your new job. Both of them, actually. The humanitarian position and the veteran program. You've got meetings all day. And tomorrow night we have dinner, all 3 of us, like a family figuring itself out." She left and Daniel went to check on Emma one more time. She was asleep, but she'd left something on her nightstand, a drawing of 3 figures holding hands. A man, a woman, and a child. Above them she'd drawn another figure with wings. Her mother watching over them, approving. Daniel took the drawing and pinned it to the refrigerator next to the photo of Rachel and the commendation letter from the Marines and all the other pieces that made up their life. 3 weeks later, Daniel stood in a conference room at Valencia Innovations addressing his first group of veteran recruits for the transition program. 20 men and women, all carrying the same weight in their eyes he'd carried for years. "I'm not here to tell you it gets easier," he began. "It doesn't. The dreams don't stop, the memories don't fade, the guilt doesn't disappear, but you can learn to carry it differently. You can learn to build something new without destroying what you were." "How?" asked a young woman, probably Army based on her bearing. "By accepting that you're not broken, just changed. By understanding that the skills that made you warriors can make you protectors, by choosing to be useful instead of dangerous. That's it, an older man asked, skeptical. No, that's the beginning. The rest is harder. The rest is getting up every day and choosing to be better than you were yesterday. It's asking for help when you need it and offering help when you don't. It's building a new mission that matters as much as the old one did. What's your mission? Someone asked. Daniel thought about Emma at school, safe and happy. About Claire in her office using her power to protect instead of dominate. About Marcus in his wheelchair building digital shields instead of physical walls. About Carl and all the others who'd shown him that family wasn't just blood, but choice. My mission is to make sure my daughter grows up in a world where warriors can become guardians, where strength serves instead of conquers, where people like us can find peace without losing purpose. That's a hell of a mission, the young woman said. Yeah, Daniel agreed. But I've got help. And so do you starting now. He spent the rest of the day with them sharing techniques for managing PTSD resources, for employment strategies, for rebuilding identity after military service. It was exhausting, but fulfilling in a way combat had never been. That evening, he returned to his janitor duties, mopping the executive floor, while Claire worked late in her office. She looked up as he passed, smiled, and went back to her work. They'd had dinner every night for 3 weeks, the three of them building something careful and strong. Dad? Emma's voice came through his phone. She was at home with Margaret Carl's wife doing homework. Yeah, kiddo. Are you happy? The question caught him off guard. Why do you ask? You smile more now. Real smiles, not the fake ones you used to do. Yeah, Daniel said, realizing it was true. I'm happy. Or getting there. Good. Mom would want you to be happy. She'd want you to be doing your homework instead of calling me. Emma giggled. Math is hard. Life is hard. Math is just numbers. Dad. Yeah. I love you. Love you too, kiddo. He hung up and continued mopping this warrior turned janitor turned protector, finding dignity in simple work and purpose in complex missions. The past would always be there, Rachel's death, the lives he'd taken, the choices he'd made. But it no longer defined him. He was Daniel Briggs, father, protector, janitor, teacher. A man who'd learned that true strength wasn't about the ability to destroy, but the wisdom to build. Not about fighting every battle, but choosing which ones mattered. Outside Seattle hummed with life, unaware of the threats that moved in its shadows, or the guardians who stood watch. And in a building downtown, a man mopped floors and planned salvation, one small act of service at a time. The phone rang again. Mitchell with intelligence about a new threat. Claire with a humanitarian crisis that needed their intervention. Marcus with data on veterans who needed help. The work never ended, but neither did the purpose. Daniel answered each call, made each plan, committed to each mission. Not as the weapon he'd been trained to be, but as the man he'd chosen to become. The janitor who'd humbled a billionaire had found something more valuable than victory. He'd found redemption, not through forgetting the past, but by building a future worth the price he'd paid. And somewhere in whatever came after this life, Rachel smiled and told their daughter stories about the man who'd loved them both, enough to change the world one cleaned floor and saved life at a time.